off with the trophy on reservation. Been going up, that's elevation. No holding back, no preservation. Treat off season like postseason. No days off, this dedication.
Game time, don't expect us to play nice. We got plans to take every record home. One thing you should know is how to.
Yeah, you better go and start meditating. Yeah, we coming for you, no hesitation. Look. Yeah, no holding back, no preservation, no off days, this dedication. Game time, get out the way, we coming through. Check the hang time, been on top, ain't nothing new. A lot of talk, whole lot of noise, but ain't cutting through. Word on roll, you got a couple L's, you'll have another soon, don't sweat. Whole lot of sacrifice, no regrets. Whole lot of dubs, but ain't done yet. Say you the one, but ain't one yet. Running the game, ain't take one step. Hold up. Yeah, all emotions aside. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. How you gon' play when the game on the line?
Game time, don't expect us to play nice. We got plans to take every record home. One thing you should know is how to.
Yeah, you better go and start meditating. Yeah, we coming for you, no hesitation. Look. Yeah, there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. How you gon' play when the game on the line? Came for the dirt, but it ain't no shame. Had to put the work in, grind day by day. All the blood, sweat, tears, no pain, no gain. I was ready for the moment and it came my way. Where the spotlight shine, where they say my name. It's the life I chose, the price I paid, lot of sacrifice.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker, the future is feeling.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client, and like we did today, we install a D-box system, we install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA. Treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
And something new. That's what the Precision Racing League Monday Night Series has in store for us here tonight. For the MX-5s, it's the Hungaroring, the classic F1 circuit that has been a staple since its introduction onto the iRacing service a couple of seasons ago. And for the GT4s, we head to one of the newest offerings on the service in the form of Sandown, the fast and flowing Australian circuit that is sure to push drivers to their absolute limit. Hello everyone and welcome to RaceSpotTV's coverage of the Precision Racing League and the MX-5 Cup Series. My name is DJ Clark and I'm joined in the commentary booth by my trusty partner Joey Tebben with our director and producer Hugo Luis behind the scenes. And Joey, we just saw Formula One take to this Hungaroring circuit. We've seen the kind of action that it can be able to bring up, and I for one am very excited to see what these MX-5s can do.
I'm very hungry in Hungary for the action tonight. Who knows what's going to happen? We've seen these guys put shows on every single kind of track we've gone to this season. The tight quarters of Summit Point, the big high banks of Daytona, and now we're in some random European Formula One circuit that was the first track to break through the Eastern Bloc. Who knows what's going to happen, but if it's anything like the other races this season, it's going to be pretty darn good.
Yes, it is. Watch out for that draft that we always talk about, specifically going down the main straightaway here. It's going to be very, very powerful. A lot of passing going down into turn one, as well as some fight backs through the rest of the first sector. Let's take a look, though, at our season schedule as we are over the halfway point here. A couple of smaller circuits still to come here. Sebring and Suzuka and Silverstone, those running the optional circuits, but we do have one more Grand Prix venue in the form of the Nürburgring.
And those are the ones we've been talking about every single time. If you're here with us on Monday nights for the MX-5s every single week, I mention those bull rings. Sebring Club, we know it is a testing track for the Indy cars, for IMSA. It's not really a race track for most series on iRacing, but we're going to make it one. Suzuka West, we've seen NASCAR Cup Series exhibition races there in like the 1990s. We're going to put MX-5s on that. And Silverstone National, of course, another shortened version of a big F1 track, and lodged right in the middle, Nürburgring Grand Prix. Technically a shortened track, a shortened version of the Nordschleife, but still pretty long.
Yes, it is. But let's go ahead and check out our championship standings here for the day. Bradley Holly continues to extend his gap over the rest of the field to the tune of about 15 points here, with the two mini horsepower teammates of Brian Kings and Kelly Greenhoe slotting in behind them. Mark Kalin, Holly's teammate, very, very close behind Greenhoe. And then we start to get back into the rest of the field there. David Van Roy, Kevin Berquist, Michael Chase, Ian Cabana, Jeffrey Smith, and Patrick Calgill in a very, very fierce fight all the way up to that top five. It could be a very, very close run there in those lower categories. Let's also jump over and take a look at the team's standings here, as that's a little bit more spread out at the top, with Car Ram Rodabak leading the way with 326 points. Mini horsepower a fair ways back from them. Let's call it about 43 points. Crikey Esports about 50 points back from them. Unlimited Slip a fair ways back, as well as SRT Esports and YS Motorsports. Some pretty big gaps there up in that team standings, but the driver standings in particular, Joey, very, very close.
Very, very close, but at the top of those team standings, that has been the story of the season so far. Crikey Esports, they've got a few bullets in their gun, but it's been Car Ram Rodabak versus Mini Horsepower, Kings and Greenhoe versus Holly and Kalin all season long, and now we're in the second half of the season. Now's the time for the story to continue, or now's the time for the likes of David Van Roy or Berquist or Cabana or Malcolm Foster or anybody from those lower teams to hop up and get in the lead battle.
Very, very true. And we're about ready to get going for those battles out on track, as drivers are on track right now for a 20-minute qualifying session. But before we do, we would like to thank VCO, the virtual competition organization, without which none of today's production would be possible. Also want to give a big, big shout out to Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on all ASR products by using the Precision5 coupon code. Also want to give a thanks to RaceLab apps. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also, thanks to the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products and add an incredible level of immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. And finally, we'd like to thank Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, back testing, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Well, Joey, as we take a look at those drivers out on track right now, really to the surprise of the field right now, it's David Van Roy up at the top of the charts right now with a gap of about 3.5 tenths of a second there. The number 4 driver has been quick over the course of the season, particularly in qualifying, but I don't think we'd really see him put in this fantastic of a time thus far.
I remember back to the Daytona road course. I think that was probably David Van Roy's best performance of the season, but the race just didn't come together in the end. But now we see David has been dominant in practice, P1 in practice to the tune of about 2.5 tenths, and he's continuing that performance right now. About 3.5 tenths over Kelly Greenhoe. There's still 12 minutes and 30 seconds to improve, but this is the strongest David Van Roy has looked all season. And I mentioned it in the pre-race. We're in the second half of the season now. If you want to fight for this championship, you've got to really turn up the wick here. And this is the best possible thing David Van Roy could be doing right now.
Yes, it certainly is. And as we watch him work his way back on the back half of the circuit, pretty crucial to note here that this is relatively a one-way street all the way through Sector 2. This twisting back area of the track with the sweeper section that they enter into right now, we are not going to see any passing through here. And if we do, I will eat my hats. It'll be very, very difficult. But in these MX-5s, plenty of good opportunity down through Sector 1, the long draft train that we talked about going down the main straightaway. I think we also may see a little bit of fight back coming down out of this sector as well if drivers are able to be close enough.
Well, you can say all that, but as we've seen over the course of this entire season, these guys can pass anywhere. They're going to do anything, anywhere. They're probably all going to be stuck together for a good percentage of the race, and I would not be surprised if you did end up having to eat your hat. We might have to cover it in some Hungarian paprika to make it taste better, do a little bit of a goulash situation, but these guys can pass anywhere and everywhere, and it's going to be a crazy race, even if it is known to be sort of a single groove road course in F1, where we normally race here, and in the feeder series as well. But tiny little MX-5s with a very powerful draft. I think this will be closer than we expect.
I hope you're right there as we ride on board with Kelly Greenhoe, currently sat in third, the highest driver right now for that mini horsepower team, doing a good job there. Looks like Bradley Holly opting for a little bit of a wider line up in front of him, and indeed, Holly's going to pull off to the side there. Not sure if he's going to re-rack and restack, or if he's going to, yeah, it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do, opting to go all the way back into the pits here. Greenhoe is going to continue on, looking to maybe get a little bit of a draft from David Van Roy up ahead of him, but right now, don't think he's going to get too much, as that number 4 car is about 2.5 seconds up the road.
And this is probably the least important track we've gone to this season in terms of needing the draft and qualifying, and Kelly Greenhoe is just going to pull over here, maybe pull entirely off. Yeah, he's done. Kings is done. They're going to get back to the pits. They're going to go out again, and they're probably going to be working together here on another run around. The draft is important on the front straight. The draft is important down here up to turn 5 or 6, if I'm counting correctly. I got to check the track map again, but there's only 2 fairly shorter straights here, so the draft matters, but it's not as important. It's not as necessary to put yourself at the top of the timesheets as it has been at tracks like Daytona previously.
Very, very true, but every little bit you can get is certainly going to help you. I can tell you, by the way, that Greenhoe and Kings back out on track as a tandem. We've seen plenty of tandem work, both between the car Ram Rodaback drivers and between that mini horsepower team. They really like to work well, and it's frankly that teamwork is really becoming a staple here of this MX-5 Cup Series.
Yeah, it's been a team battle, which is pretty remarkable because there's 4 separate drivers. They all have their own interests in mind, but Kalen and Holly have been working together all season, and Greenhoe and Kings have been working together all season. Greenhoe and Kings have had less trouble than Holly and Kalen have. Holly and Kalen have kind of ran into each other a couple times. Tempers have flared just a little bit, and they actually flared even more. I believe they came together at IRP on Wednesday night in the trucks, if I'm remembering correctly. No, I think that might have been somebody else who got into Bradley Holly. So ignore what I just said there. But either way, in the MX-5s, there's been a little bit of trouble. But even with that, they have been working together as teammates. And that's why they're very well at the top of the team standings. And our friends over at Mini Horse Racing, they've still got ground to make up.
Yes, they do, as we take a live look there at Bradley Holly. That concentration coming through the final corner and now easing back. This is really your moment here on the circuit to relax. I have heard this place really be described as an almost a go-kart track in the way that it just flows at you, constantly corners coming at you one after the other. You have got to constantly be on your game. And that front straightaway, really the only opportunity that you're going to get to rest over the course of this entire lap. Holly certainly becoming part of that here as he works his way down into turn 2.
And as always with Bradley Holly, it looks completely fine. Looks completely normal in practice. Looks completely clean. He's got everything nailed, but unfortunately for him, David Van Roy has been putting on a masterclass so far this weekend. So Brad is doing a very good job of wringing everything he can out of this car, but he's got no help from his teammate Mark Kalin right now to pick up any sort of percentage of draft, and that's not going to help at all. Completely overcooking it there up at turn 5, and that's probably going to ruin his entire lap. He's just going to have to, I'd back off a little bit here, cool down the tires, and go for another big flyer next time around.
Well, it's good that you mentioned they're cooling down the tires, because I think that's going to be a storyline over the course of this race. Track temperature right now, 109 degrees Fahrenheit out on track. It's only 74 in the air, but there's about 43% humidity, and the sun is beating down on this track. So 109, I think you're going to have to be worrying a little bit about those tire temperatures over the course of the race, trying to keep them under control.
And if I'm Mark Kalin, a driver who really likes to slide the rear tires around, I'd be a little bit worried about 109 degree track temp. Kelly Greenhoe has been ringing this Miata around as well. You can see here through turn 8, then through turn 9, he's losing the rear just a little bit, hopping the curb. So you can be aggressive on this road course, but with 109 degree track temp, those tires are going to be roasting. We're not going to see any sort of tire changes. We never do, but you got to keep the tires underneath you, and nobody's better at doing that in these MX-5s at least than Bradley Holly. But maybe David Van Roy will be good at that too, and he's already got the point up there, so he's pretty much got to, because Bradley Holly's right behind him.
Yes, he is, but crucially, he's about 27 hundredths of a second off of Holly right now. That gap has grown since we first checked in on it, with Ben Roy able to put in another good lap there. Pretty close further back with Kelly Greenhoe, only about 83 thousandths of a second off of Bradley Holly. Then it's Michael Chase, 4 tenths down. Derek Putnam as Austin Bartlett Chase is able to put in a time to go 6th fastest. Let's see if these mini horsepower gents have anything to do. Yes, they do. Ryan Kings is going to insert himself into that conversation and get himself up onto the second row with a time of a 2:03.913. That's going to be about 4 tenths off of Ben Roy, but only about 69 thousandths off of his teammate Kelly Greenhoe.
And I might be the one who has to eat a Hungarian paprika covered hat, because the draft did really work for Ryan Kings there in the toe of Kelly Greenhoe. Even on the short straights of the Hungaroring, he clearly found something there to improve up to 4th. And I'm sure they'll switch around now. Now Ryan will give the draft to Kelly, and we'll see if Kelly can move up, maybe even past Bradley Holly, if not challenging for pole. But Mark Kalin hasn't got a representative lap in back here. He did a 2:32. I imagine he either made a mistake or backed off, and this looks like it'll be his first real lap, his first real chance to see how fast he's going to go, and if he can meet his teammate up there at the top of the timesheets.
Well, that's certainly what he's going to be hoping to do. Yeah, he is a whopping 28 seconds off with his only real time down on the board. So that not looking necessarily great there for Kalin. Let's see, though, as he comes down now through turn 13, and he's going to loop it around. That is not the way you want to do. A little bit of contact there, I think, with one of the other drivers there. That may have been Kevin Berquist, excuse me. And so that is going to scupper both of their laps, and they've got to get themselves back out there with times of 2:03 out on the board. They're not going to have a whole lot of time here to dilly-dally around.
Yeah, I hope Kalin has instantly come back to the pits there and respawned and gone back out, because he has basically no time. He's lucky it is open qualifying, so you can go out with, say, 3 minutes to go and still get a lap, even if time runs out while you're on your lap. But He's got to get out quick here. Here's Ryan Kings. He has taken the lead in the Greenhoe Kings duet here. He's going to be giving Kelly a little bit of draft here out of the exit. I think he might actually be a little bit too far ahead to give any real effect to Kelly, but let's see as they cross the line. What does Greenhoe do? It's a 2:04.1, so nothing really done on that lap. Nothing really helped, but that might just be a subpar following maneuver by Kelly Greenhoe. And here's Charles Sumner completely on his own as well.
Yeah, Sumner now brings it down through this switchback hairpin section that makes up turn 13 and 14 on the Hungaro ring. Sumner bringing it on down through his best time at 2:05.965. You can see that there. Looking at it, he was able to set a personal best down through Sector 1. Not so much during Sector 2. Is he going to be able to improve on that time? No, it looks like he's going to be about 2/10 off. Let's call it a 1/10.5 off. But Bradley Holly's going to be able to close in on the back of him. Here is Rodrigo Michelin trying to beat a 2:11.652.
And you saw Charles Sumner ahead of Bradley Holly. That's critical. Those guys aren't normally teammates, but in this amalgam of car, ramrod, and whataback, they are teammates. So Sumner might give Holly a little bit of help there, but Rodrigo Michelin, no help here down in 14th, but he's definitely going to improve on this lap. This has been much more representative, a 2:06.3. I imagine he had a mistake on the 2:11.6 lap, but that lap actually doesn't count for Rodrigo, so he must have gotten an off track somewhere, and he's got one, maybe two more shots to improve.
Yeah, he's not going to have a whole lot to be able to do. By the way, David Van Roy, your provisional pole sitter, is in pit lane, so that means he is not going to come back out and try to set a faster time. He is happy with that 2:03.489. He is not moving. There's a little bit of formation flying as Ryan Kings gets out of the way of Kelly Greenhoe, clearing space for the 12, going down into this final sector. You can see the concentration there on Greenhoe's face as he brings it down through the corner. So tricky to be able to get that power down just at the right point. We saw problems like that during the F1 race this weekend of just how hard it can be.
And Kelly, your teammate's done all the work here. He's given you a great draft. Now it's all down to you, and you can see him shaking forward. He knows he's going to improve, I think. And a 2:03.4, that's pole. That's pole for Kelly Greenhoe. And I think all of that came from the rocking forward on the chair. Good technique there, Kelly.
Oh, exactly. You lean forward in the chair, you lean forward in the driver's seat, and that is a guaranteed way to get you a couple extra miles per hour. But let's see here if Bradley Holly's going to have a response, as the 184 was able to go purple, setting an overall best sector time through Sector 2. Runs a little bit wide there, coming out of 13. That's okay. Just carries momentum in these MX-5s. Now brings it down through 14. That final corner, going to get onto the loud pedal. He's not going to have the benefit of the draft here, but he's trying to improve on that 2:03.7, and it's going to be marginally better, but it's not going to improve his position.
And you saw he did not lean forward in his chair. That's where all the 3/10 went. That is science right there. Ryan Kings is going to get one more lap on his own now that he's behind his teammate Kelly. Is Kelly close enough to give him any sort of draft? No, he's not. So Ryan Kings, he gave his teammate Kelly Greenhoe so much help there, but unfortunately he's going to be fighting on his own on this final lap, and it's going to be difficult to improve on his own. But first and fourth could be far worse. That is as close as the teammates can ask for. I mean, they could ask for a little bit closer. They could ask for first and second, but still, I have a feeling they're going to find each other, and Kings knows he's not going to improve. He parks it. He's at least happy with fourth for the moment.
Yes, he is. As here's a driver we haven't gotten a chance really to focus on, one of the Crikey Esports drivers there, Malcolm Foster, trying to improve on a 2:05.731, currently back in 10th place right now. He's got about 0.6 of a second to try to make up to anybody around him. Not seeing any green sector times here as Mark Kalin finally puts a representative time down on the board, and he's going to bump his way up into 6th place. I don't think that's going to be exactly what the Carl Rodeback driver was going to be hoping for, but it's still good enough to get him at least in the midfield.
Malcolm Foster here, I believe, is the last driver on track right now, so this will be the last representative lap. Here's a guide for some of the viewers at home. These Crikey Esports cars, they look awfully similar, but Malcolm Foster's got a white roll cage, Kevin Berquist has a blue roll cage, and Ian Cabana has a red roll cage. So remember that when we see these cars close to each other during the race. Foster's going to cross the line, and he's not going to be able to improve, but P11 right next to his two teammates, Berquist and Cabana, so use those colored roll cages I told you about. You're going to need them.
Yes, you are, as here comes the 62 of Mark Kalin. I believe he was just barely able to cross over the line to maybe get one more flyer on the books, trying to improve now from that 204.21 that put him into 6th place. Kalin definitely wheeling that car around here, kicking up a little bit of dust there on the exit of turn 7, trying to see what he is able to get as he now flicked the car through this sweeper section. So very difficult, and no matter what kind of machinery you are in, Joey, to find the rhythm through this portion of the track.
And that's the hardest part of this whole track, that section, because it is a rhythm. It's one groove. Like on an oval, there's one groove you can drive through, you get offline, and you can essentially write off your lap entirely. But Mark Kalin's strength this season has been on the brakes, and this last sector, this is where you need to be good on the brakes. Through that corner there, now down into turn 13. Not the heaviest braking zone in the world in turn 13 or turn 14, but brakes are important, and he's going to round the final corner here. I can only imagine his upper limit's probably around 5th or 4th, but let's see.
Well, he was able to set a personal best there through the sector 2. Let's see as he crosses over the line for sector 3. Is that going to be good enough for an improvement? It doesn't appear to be, and Mark Kalin will stay back in 6th place. And that's going to round out our qualifying effort here today as checkered flag flies on qualifying, and we get ready to take you to the grid for tonight's MX-5 Cup Series race. Lining up in pole position, it is Kelly Greenhoe with David Van Roy to his outside. Bradley Holly and Ryan Kings make up row 2 with Michael Chase and Mark Kalin in the row behind them. 7th place will be Derek Putnam, followed by Austin Bartlett Chase. A great response there for the Unlimited Slip driver. Kevin Berquist going to line up next to his teammate there, Ian Cabana, and Malcolm Foster behind them, making up a 3-car Crikey Esports block. Patrick Cowgill will start off in 12th, followed by Charles Sumner in 13th, Andrew Sharp, and then Rodrigo Michelin will round out your 15-car grid. Joey, as we get ready to go here, what are your keys to the race? What do we need to be watching for to see who's going to be able to emerge victorious here at the Hungaro Ring?
Well, the key likely going to be turn 1 here. David Van Roy, I'm sure, is going to be disappointed with 2nd, actually. It sounds kind of strange to be disappointed with 2nd, but he's been so dominant for the entirety of this session that now that he's been displaced, he's going to really want that lead back, and I can only imagine with him being on the inside into turn 1, if he can nail this start, I think we're going to see David Van Roy get very aggressive early on and get very aggressive to take that lead back.
Yeah, I think you could be right. It's obviously a staggered grid here. We will be starting a little bit back from Kelly Greenhoe as is tradition in a standing start, but nonetheless, it's going to be very, very tricky coming down into that corner. It's a wide first corner that does break away from you, but if you misjudge that braking, we have seen utter calamity taking place there.
We've seen calamity in all sorts of series at turn 1. Luckily, it's only a 15-car field, rather, so I can't imagine anybody's going to miss the braking zone bad enough to screw up that badly, but it's happened. I hope it doesn't.
Well, we will have to see here as we just get the final words from Race Control as they give a little bit of last-minute commands to the field. Everybody sitting behind the wheel right now, getting ready to get going as we wait for Race Control to give us the go-ahead to start racing here at the Hungaro Ring. And there we see all 16 drivers lining up on the grid. Garrett Cottingham looks like he connected a little bit late, and so he did not make qualifying, but he will be our 16th entry here as the lights go on, and there goes the green. We are racing in the Hungaro Ring. It's a good start there from Kelly Greenhoe. David Van Roy looks like he's a little bit slower there off of the get-go as he's going to have Bradley Holly to contend with around the outside. Probably not going to be able to make a big threat going down into the corner, trying to see what they are doing here. Diving down into the corners now, side by side there between Van Roy and Holly. Looks like Van Roy's going to get a little bit of a break ahead. Ryan King's trying to get into the action as well.
And Garrett Cottingham out there in the back of that red car, joined with literally 4 seconds left on the grid. So he's getting all of his practice here in these first couple corners. But David Van Roy, like I said, he's on the attack. But unfortunately, Bradley Holly's been on the attack even more. And Van Roy's fallen to 3rd now, and he's going to get completely turned around there by Ryan Kings. And that's probably his race. It's not done, but it's almost done.
Very, very close there, though I think Van Roy may have been able to avoid contact. We focus here on the 34 of Michael Chase and Mark Kalin going side by side up the hill. That is always a little bit of a hairy move. Looks like Austin Bartlett Chase losing a little bit of ground. It is Mark Kalin who is going to persevere, but gets squirrely coming up the hill.
I don't know if there was contact there with Michael Chase. I don't think there was. I think that was just a case of cold tires on exit, and Kalin just gets squirrely ahead of Chase and Bartlett Chase as well. And Michelin in the background just turned Charles Sumner coming into the chicane. So lots of trouble here on lap 1 in some unorthodox places.
Yes, there are, but I'll tell you what isn't unorthodox. The battle for the lead that we have seen many times over the course of this season. Kelly Greenhoe leading from Bradley Holly, that 194, stalking his prey like a lion on the savannah, trying to be able to see what he is able to get. Little bit of a look there going down into turn 12, but nothing too aggressive there going early, as they have got a big amount of breathing room between themselves and Mark Kalin with a tune of about 3 seconds here.
And they can say thank you, Ryan Kings and David Van Roy, very much, because that accident is what built that gap. Let's take a look at what happened. Van Roy on the inside. Kings switches to the inside, and yeah, that's all on Kings there, I think. He just sent it into a gap that didn't exist, and unfortunately turns both of them around. It's actually lighter damage than I thought. I thought Van Roy was about to back it into the wall at full speed, but they both have recovered. Unfortunately, they've recovered at the back of the field, so they've both got a lot of overtaking to do, while the championship leader, Bradley Holly, hangs out nice and pretty in second.
Yes, he does, as we're going to take a look here at that on board with Ryan Kings. You can see the opportunity. He thought about it. It looked like there that Van Roy actually may have gotten a little bit sideways and slowed down at the apex of the corner, but I still have to agree with you there, Joey, that was an over-aggressive move from Ryan Kings.
And now, instead of Ryan Kings, we have to actually think about Kelly Greenhoe in the championship, because he's only 15 points behind Bradley Holly. If he can stay up here, he's only going to make up a few points, but that's still better than making up no points or even losing points. But he might just lose points because Holly is very aggressive right now. He is on the attack. He's not interested in sticking behind Kelly Greenhoe. He knows track position is at a premium here, and he's trying to go for some moves in some weird places. If Greenhoe makes another mistake, he might just make a move into this twisty sector of the track. He's thought about it every single time, but it's just not been possible to make a move. He just hasn't been close enough in the places where it really matters yet.
No, he hasn't. A little bit of a poke down into the inside there of turn 9, trying to see what he is able to get as they now flow their way through turn 10 and out of 11. And yeah, you really saw Bradley Holly there trying to look to the inside, look to the outside, coming up through turn 4. Now that is a very aggressive area to try to get that move. A little bit of a calming breath there for Bradley Holly. He knows he doesn't want to try to be too aggressive here too early. And we've seen him play this strategy out many times of just riding behind the driver in front of you, sipping a little bit on that fuel, potentially saving those tires a little bit, and waiting for the opportune moment to strike.
Got to be careful, though, in the exit of turn 13. I think he might have gotten an off track there, and those come at a premium as well. Can't be using up all of them, just like Austin Bartlett Chase in the background as well. But here's the effect of the draft. We're seeing it for the first time, really down the front straight here. Holly makes up about a 10th and a half. It was about half a second coming out of turn 14 down into turn 1. It goes down to about 3.5 tenths of a second. So the draft, while powerful, it's not necessarily a long enough straight that you're going to be able to make up like a full second gap. So you really do need to be closer than at some of the other tracks this season. He's going to have to stick almost a 10th and a half behind Kelly Greenhoe in the exit of 14 if he really wants to make the move at a high percentage in turn 1.
Yeah, I think you're right there as Greenhoe gets a little bit sideways coming up and out of turn 3. Holly again looking to the inside, just a little bit over 4. Maybe trying to make a sneak attack here coming up into the highest portion of the track. It looks here like that Kelly Greenhoe is taking a little bit of a wider entrance into a lot of these corners, taking a later apex. Holly being a little bit more aggressive, diving down to the inside apex. Is that going to have any effect on tire wear here, Joey?
Well, it really depends on which style is better, because you could say that Kelly Greenhoe's way of driving right now is also very aggressive. It might not be as fast as Bradley Holly right now. It might look like he's trying to conserve tires by taking a little bit of a wider line, maybe a little bit of a smoother steering angle, but both of them are certainly being aggressive right now, and I honestly don't think there will be much difference in terms of tire life between either of them. I know Bradley Holly is so good at saving tires in the NASCAR machinery, in any sort of machinery he races, but right now it looks looks pretty equal up there as we've got a train back here from about fourth back.
Yes, we do, and we focus here on Derek Putnam. This turning into a little bit of a draft train as Putnam tries to close in behind Patrick Cowgill, Ian Cabana, and Kevin Berquist, two of those Crikey Esports drivers directly up ahead of them as they work their way down through turn 13, looking to be at about that gap that we were talking about, about a tenth and a half to be able to close in. And I've got to tell you, though, Putnam's got to be a little bit worried because we've got some drivers starting to work their way back up through the field. David Van Roy already up into 10th as here comes a move from Holly down to the inside of Kelly Greenhoe. Greenhoe's going to try to carry momentum there around the outside, but that is not going to pay off. And the 184 resumes his familiar position at the top of the field.
Very, very wide line through turn 1 for Kelly Greenhoe. Was not interested in fighting that too hard, and this might actually be a good thing for Kelly. Track position's important, the lead's very important, but Kelly might be able to save a little bit of fuel here if he can stick with Bradley Holly, but that's easier said than done. Brad 100% appeared to be the faster of the two drivers in the first 8 minutes of this race. So it's going to be an uphill battle here for Kelly Greenhoe to keep up. And this was actually very good for Mark Kalin, for both of these two to be fighting, for Greenhoe to be holding Holly up just a little bit. But now that they've separated, Kalin might have a little bit less chance of catching his teammate up there for the lead.
Very well might. Aggressive lines there coming up through the corner. And to your point there about being able to catch up behind Mark Kalin, now only about 2 seconds behind this battle. As they ran, they were about 3 seconds when this battle really started to take shape after that coming together, coming out of turn 3 on the opening lap. We watch here as there's a little bit of sideways action for Kelly Greenhoe, really trying to wheel that thing around. We've seen the rear end of that number 12 get a little bit squirrely here, and interesting to see the two different driving styles as they shake themselves out.
Greenhoe, at least on this lap, is doing a pretty good job of sticking with Holly, though. About 0.4 of a second down into turn 13. David Van Roy on his drive forward here. He doesn't seem too distracted by that incident at the start of the race. I'm sure he's angry. I'm sure he's hungry for these positions, but he has been very smart in his drive through the field. He hasn't gone for any low percentage moves. He hasn't taken anybody else out. He's just been cleanly making his passes back through the field. And he's only 8.2 seconds off the lead. I think he might be the fastest car on track right now. Except for Mark Kalin. Yeah, he is. A 2:04.0 on the last lap. So David Van Roy's flying. I don't know if he's still in the conversation for the lead, but we might have to start talking about him for a top 5.
We might indeed, as here we see a little bit of a move by the Crikey Esports driver of Kevin Berquist down to the inside of Austin Bartlett Chase, feeds the 17 out just wide enough, and that's going to open up a little bit of an opportunity here for Ian Cabana to maybe get a move here on the number 17. He's going to think about a move down into turn 2, thinks about it, thinks better of it. Again, wide line up in front there from Kevin Berquist as they fly down now through the corner into turn 3. This is the area that we saw that big coming together on the opening lap, but everybody able to get through that nice and cleanly.
David Van Roy still, you can see he probably could have made the move on Patrick Cowgill there, coming up the hill into turn 4 if he really wanted to, but he hung back, he waited, he knows that's a move that's not necessarily going to work out most of the time, and he's just going to let Patrick Cowgill make the mistake there into turn 5. He'll take the inside coming into the chicane, and it'll be an easy move for David Van Roy, and that's just very smart racing for a driver who probably shouldn't be this far down the field right now.
Yeah, very, very smart racing, and I've got to tell you that that is really the most front grip we've seen from any driver here coming up through turn 5. That looked like that car was absolutely planted, and we've seen some cars wash up a little bit there, not really be able to get down to the apex. On the contrary, it looked like Van Roy was absolutely stuck to the track. So David Van Roy really, really showing just how much pace he has up to 8th place. Now he's going to have to start working here a little bit on this Crikey Esports trio that runs just up ahead of him.
Getting stuck to the back of Ian Cabana here through turn 13. Looks pretty equal. Van Roy does have quite a bit more front grip. It seems like he's 100% faster across the entirety of the lap. He did a 2:03.9 on the last lap. One of the only drivers who's still running in the 2:03s. But on the exit of turn 14, just a little bit too far back to make the move on Ian Cabana into turn 1. But he's been making these moves very quickly and also very conservatively. Seems like a little bit of an oxymoron to make moves quickly and slowly at the same time, but somehow David Van Roy is perfecting that.
Yeah, he really is. And I want to go back to something that you said just a little bit ago there, Joey. The high percentage moves that we are seeing here out of David Van Roy, that is something that has become a little bit of his calling card. He's had bad luck over the course of this season. That is to be sure. He's been taken out in incidents and accidents like you saw here earlier today through this very corner. But Van Roy has really established himself as a driver that's not going to go for a really, really risky move where there could be contact. He much prefers to take those high percentage moves where he knows he can get the place and get away with it. And I really want to commend the number 4 for that run.
It's also come bad for him. If we remember back to Brands Hatch, he was in the battle for the podium, and he had many, many chances to go from 4th to 3rd, but he just kind of hung back and almost refused to go for the move. So it works in some places, it doesn't work in others, but right now, here tonight, it is working very, very well for David Van Roy, and Ian Cabana just threw it off the road a little bit there, kicked up some dust. That's going to allow David Van Roy to close all over the back of him. Not going to be able to make a move through the twisty section of the track, but I imagine down into turn 12. I think that's where we'll see David Van Roy make up his next spot. Great exit here onto this short straight, and yeah, he's already popped into the inside, and I don't think Ian Cabana is going to fight this one too hard. He knows Van Roy's faster.
Yes, he does, and there goes Van Roy down to the inside, and Joey, when you're right, perfectly calling that out, and it looks like there that Van Roy still hunting around for that optimal grip. We've got a bit of an interesting development at the front of the field. That is Kelly Greenhow. What has become his calling card here in this MX-5 Cup Series, pitting in early. This is, dare I say, very early for the mini horsepower driver.
22 minutes left to go in the race. This is a very unorthodox strategy for Kelly Greenhow, and I don't know why he did it. That's such an odd thing to happen. I wonder almost if there was contact between him and Holly or something, because the gap between Holly and Kalen has come way down as well. It's now only 7/10 between the two of them for the lead. So that's just a bizarre circumstance, and I have no idea what went on there. I don't know if this is deliberate or not.
Well, I saw there that he did lose a lot of time as we got a six side by side here. Austin Bartlett Chase putting up a little bit of a fight there to David Van Roy. Van Roy trying to claw his way back up into that 5th place position, looking this way, looking that way. And I do believe that there was a little bit of a dual error up front between Holly and Kelly Greenhow, as those two just got a little bit off, not coming together, but they both lost a lot of time there to Mark Kalin, and maybe just thinking that problem there for Kelly Greenhow coming into pit lane and trying to take a little bit of a reset. But again, we see David Van Roy just so much grip there off of turn 5. He's going to try to make the move down into the chicane. He's got to be careful here. Austin Bartlett Chase gives him plenty of room, and that's going to be P5 for your former pole sitter.
Remember when he was backwards in the wall 14 minutes ago? Now he is P5, and Kevin Berquist is only 2.5 seconds ahead. I don't think we can write David Van Roy off for the podium here with Michael Chase a few seconds ahead. Of course, Kelly Greenhow would be up there if he didn't just come in, but yeah, I don't think we could write David Van Roy off for the podium here. That would be a fantastic comeback if he can pull that off, but he's gotten by the easy ones, so to say. He's gotten by the drivers who we 100% know that he's faster than, but now he's got some more serious competition that were a little bit closer to him in qualifying, and another driver driving his way forward through the field just a little bit more slowly. Ryan King's now up to 9th.
Yes, he is. Has to check his progress there. A little bit behind Patrick Cowgill, but he's going to try to redouble his effort as Cowgill and it looks like Cabana both coming down pit lane. So maybe this early pit stop strategy becoming a little bit of a thing that drivers want to copy here. Also looks like Andrew Sharp is going to be coming down into the pits.
It's weird because it just goes completely against the pit strategies from every other week. I almost wonder if drivers are using up the fuel faster than they thought they would. But if that's the case, they would have to come in another time with 5 minutes to go, and I can't imagine that's true. So I think they might just be trying to get out of traffic, because we saw quite a bit of traffic, and unlike at Daytona, traffic is not helpful here. Traffic is going to slow you down. So that might just be the case. Cabana gets out of traffic, Cowgill gets out of traffic, Sharp gets out of traffic, and they're all going to come out behind Sumner and Greenhow as well, who will have to start thinking about 28 seconds behind our leaders. Pit lane delta around 33 seconds. Of course, that's not completely stationary, so we have to take that into consideration, but I don't know when Holly and Kalen are going to come in, and I don't know how they're going to shake out.
Yeah, this is turning out to be a very, very fascinating race, and especially in terms of fuel numbers. Let's not forget that this was the site of one of the most infamously fantastic races in PRL history, where several drivers in the GT3 series were able to do a fabled no-stop race here. Despite the fuel restrictions, they figured out that they could make it on a no-stop. It really threw drivers for a loop. I was lucky enough to be on that call, and I'll tell you, I was stunned to the day. So pit stop strategy and a little bit of off-cycle timings, let's call it. Not exactly unfamiliar ground for the PRL here at the Hungaroring.
And this track is essentially as close to a street circuit as you can get for a natural terrain road course. We normally see those kind of fuel shenanigans at the street circuits. We saw it earlier this season with Guillaume Levesque and a few others pulling it off at Long Beach, but it's a slow track in a lot of places here. There's a lot of places where you can lift off, where you can save fuel, but I don't think that's going to be possible in the MX-5s here, unfortunately. They are a little bit too fuel hungry for that. And hungry for 6th place is Ryan Kings. Austin Bartlett Chase, again, just leaving all the room in the world. And Kings is through, and he sees David Van Roy about 4 seconds ahead now in clean air, right ahead of him for the first time in 17 minutes.
Yes, he does, and it looks like Derek Putnam also going to try to put Austin Bartlett Chase down a position. They'll dive down through the corner. Little bit of a pinch there from Bartlett Chase, trying to keep the 71 down to the inside as much as possible. Ryan King's pulling away to the best of his abilities, but they're still side by side there between Putnam and Bartlett Chase as they now dive down into turn 2. Advantage is going to shift back over to Austin Bartlett Chase here as they wind their way through the corner, and that is going to be his position to hold on to. A stout defense there from the number 17.
Very good defense. Almost the long game for Austin Bartlett Chase. He basically gave up the position in turn 1, and then he got it back in turn 2 and turn 3, and he's ahead of Derek Putnam. Putnam's not giving up, though. Derek Putnam, of course, made his debut a few races ago. He's new to the series. He's not new to the car, but he's new to the league here, and he has been doing a very solid job. And again, it's still a very solid job. He's lower than he would like. He'd like to be in the top 5, but still, solid job, solid racing, clean racing for Derek Putnam, and he's in 8th, probably 9th overall right now.
Yeah, doing a good job here to keep this close. And this is a very, very close battle that we have running. But I've got to tell you, Ryan Kings looks like he's pulling away from this a little bit to the tune of about 8 or 9 tenths of a second. So Kings trying to be able to close in and undo some of the damage that he saw a little bit earlier. You saw it just on the bottom of your screen, though. I've got to give some credit here to David Van Roy. He is already challenging Kevin Bergquist up ahead of him. That gap down to under 5 tenths of a second as your leaders come on in. Bradley Holly and Mark Kalin coming down pit lane.
And this is where it all comes down to. Kelly Greenhoe brought the gap down to about 27 seconds when these two brought it down pit road. So will Kelly's early pit stop pay off, or will Holly and Kalin, now that they've joined each other, work out into the lead here? This is going to be very interesting, and if they do get out in the lead, you know Kalen's going to be very hungry. He's also in championship contention. We almost wrote him off when he was 6th place in qualifying, and somehow he's found his teammate again, and he's right next to him. But the real battle, it could be a 3-way battle. We wait for Kelly Greenhoe now.
Yes, we do, as Kelly comes down the start-finish straightaway right now, still side-by-side there between Austin Bartlett Chase and Derek Putnam there, as it looks like that undercut is going to work. Kelly Greenhoe to the lead of the race.
Holly misfueled the car. He was in his box for 17.6 seconds. He put 3 too many seconds of fuel in the car. And that does not only allow Kelly Greenhoe to jump him, that allowed Mark Kalin to jump him by about 3 seconds as well. Now about 2 seconds on track, but that's a catastrophic pit stop for Bradley Holly. And now he finds 2 of his championship rivals have completely jumped him off the track.
Yes, they have, and this is going to be a big, big shakeup when it comes to the running here, as Kelly Greenhoe is crucially about 9 tenths of a second away from Mark Kalin. Now, we talked about the draft here and how you've got to be within about 1.5 tenths to be able to actually make a move down the front straightaway, but if Kelly's able to hold that out, we'll have to see. That other battle we were following, by the way, between Putnam and Austin Bartlett Chase, it looks like Putnam finally able to get that move to stick, but he does run a little bit wide there coming through turn 9. That'll pick up an off track for him.
And we have to start thinking about the incident points, especially at a track like this where the incident points are kind of punitive. 13 incident points gets you a drive-through, 17 gets you disqualified on a road course. I don't think Derek Putnam's going to be anywhere near 13 right now, but it's still something to think about, especially when you're in a high intensity battle like this. This is when you're most inclined to throw the car off the road to pick up as many tenths as you possibly can. But I think Derek Putnam has done well enough for mostly keeping it within the lines. Just something to think about. It's something I always have to think about. But he looks like he's doing well here, and Chase, Roy, and Bergquist are in.
Yes, they are. More drivers opting to come down pit lane with a couple of ticks under 14 seconds to go, or 14 minutes rather, to go here in this race. Van Roy coming to rest in the box, taking every last bit of speed that he can out. By the way, your leaders right now are just crossing over the start-finish line. There they are in the form of Kelly Greenhoe and Mark Kalin, keeping an eye to see where Van Roy will come out in regards to them. It looks like he's going to be behind this leading trio as, is that looking like a little bit of a slow stop there for David Van Roy, I believe. About 16 seconds. That is on the long side.
It is on the long side, but I'm starting to wonder. Kelly Greenhoe and Mark Kalin, 14.5 seconds in the box. Everybody else was in the box for 16 to 17 seconds. So maybe Bradley Holly hasn't overfueled the car. Kalin and Greenhoe have just underfueled the car. I don't know, and I don't know how every single week we somehow manage to have a different conversation about fuel. It's like these guys have a book of an infinite amount of fuel strategies, and they're determined to use every single one of them over the course of the season.
Well, it's one of the things I love most about this MX-5 series is the strategy that we see getting played out. Now, David Van Roy is effectively going to be back in about 5th place right now by my calculations when everything shuffles itself out. We're still waiting for pit stops here from Kings, Putnam, Bartlett, Chase. Those three, as well as Charles Sumner, but he's a little bit farther back in the field here at this point. So still plenty of intrigue to be able to play itself out here on the dying 12 minutes of this race.
Charles Sumner didn't actually get out of the way as a lapped car. That was for position to get rid of David Van Roy here. Should be top 5 for Van Roy once everything shakes out. Kings, Putnam, and Austin Bartlett Chase should be behind Van Roy once the pit stop cycle cycles its way out. But Michael Chase is right there ahead of Van Roy, only about 1.5 seconds, and we know Van Roy's faster. So 4th place looks like the upper limit for now, but there's been drama up front. There's been comings together up front all through this season. Can't write him out for the podium, and those other 3 that I mentioned, they're finally down pit road. This is everybody, and watch for the fuel number. Watch for the time in the pit box. Is it going to be around 14 seconds, or is it going to be around 17 seconds? If it's around 17 seconds this late in the run, I'm starting to worry for Kalin and Greenhoe.
Yeah, I am as well. Looks like Kings is about 14 seconds there. He's able to come in and out pretty quickly. Putnam about 16 and a half. Austin Bartlett Chase 16.9. So, well, that pretty much doesn't answer anything for us there, Joey.
Of course. That's what I expected. There's no answers to be given. We'll just have to wait here, and you'll have to tune in for the next 11 minutes on Race Spot to find out how this race ends. How's that sound?
I think that's what we call a teaser in the business, and I cannot wait to see how the last 11 minutes of this race will pan themselves out, especially here as Mark Kalin looking very, very feisty, coming up behind Kelly Greenhoe, looking a little bit, going down up into turn 4, and maybe a little bit of a dive. Again, Greenhoe liking that outer line, liking that a little bit off the apex, a traditional line there coming up through turn 5.
And that was a big send by Mark Kalin. I think he was hoping to spook Kelly Greenhoe into a little bit of a mistake there. Unfortunately for Mark Kalin, Kelly Greenhoe has probably made the least mistakes of any driver in this series this season. So it's going to be very, very hard to scare him offline. Going to be very, very hard to scare him into a mistake. But Kalin's always the late breaker, and the late braking zones are critical on this track. In turn 1, coming up here to turn 12, this is where you have to make the move if you're going to make the move. Kalin's not quite close enough to make a move into turn 12 this time, or is he? No, he tries to peek again. He tries to scare Kelly off the track again. It doesn't work again, unfortunately.
No, Kelly Greenhoe not to be dissuaded. They are able to hold on to that line, and Kalin may have lost a little bit of time as a result of that look. He's now about 6 to 7 tenths of a second behind him. We take a live look there at the number 62, working his way around there. Again, you can see just that little bit of a wider line there for Kelly Greenhoe. Really nobody else Chess is running that line, but it is working a treat here for the number 12. Greenhoe now moves down to the inside of the track, trying to break the draft a little bit of Mark Kalin. Kalin, not to be dissuaded, didn't follow Greenhoe down. Now he's going to pick up a little bit of the draft down the latter part of the straightaway. They dive onto the binders here, working their way through the corner. Greenhoe taking a little bit more of a traditional line down through turn 1.
I don't know why Mark Kalin didn't follow Kelly in the draft there, because you can see the gap now. It's expanded. It's almost a full second. A lot of that came from turn 1. He just wasn't able to carry as much speed as Kelly was, but I don't understand that. There's no penalty. There's nothing bad that can happen when you're following him in the draft. It's only a good thing. So I don't know what kind of 4D chess Mark Kalin's doing behind the wheel of that car, but that was strange. He's definitely faster here through the tight and twisty sections, but that's not where you can really make the move.
No, it's not, and we'll have to maybe ask Mark Kalin at the end of this race when we get into podium interviews with about 8.5 minutes here left to go. By the way, for anyone counting back, David Van Rooyen, your pole sitter, able to move up into 4th place, getting the move done on Michael Chase. So that is going to put the number 4 into 4th. Now, he's got about 7.5 seconds to try to make up to Bradley Holly. I don't think that's going to be really attainable here unless something terrible happens to Holly.
Well, David Van Rooyen wouldn't admit to this, but in his cockpit right now, he's probably looking at his relative. He's looking at those close gaps between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and he's whispering to himself, please, take each other out, run into each other, do something. I want to get back on this podium. Who knows if it'll happen? It has happened before. David Van Rooyen's not going to be content with 4th, though. It's been a great drive forward. There's still going to be a tinge of disappointment, even with him probably being the driver of the day here, taken out through no fault of his own, driving all the way back up to 4th. He really wanted this win this week.
Yeah, I think he did, but the one thing that I will say here is we have seen improved pace and improved performance here out of that number 4 machine, and I certainly think it is only a matter of time until David Van Rooyen is able to break his duck and take his first win in the MX-5 Cup Series. Meanwhile, back up at the front of the field, Kelly Greenhoe and Mark Kalin continue their game of chess, starting to close in a little bit, and they may have a third player into this match as Bradley Holly down into the braking zone of turn 1 was able to close within a second. He sits about 1.1 seconds behind right now as they work their way down into turn 12, but I think if there is even the merest bit of scuffling between Greenhoe and Kalin, Holly is going to get involved very quickly.
He might not even need the scuffling. He's there, and he might just be able to make this move. He was 0.8 of a second faster than both of these guys on the last lap, so Holly's going to catch Kalin. He's going to catch Greenhoe, but neither of them are going to be very nice at all in terms of letting him by because they're trying to beat him for a championship. They're going to say, Brad, you've got enough wins. You've got enough points ahead of me. We're not going to let you pass. You might be quicker, but you're going to have the hardest time overtaking you have all season, my friend.
Indeed, and remember the comings together that we've seen between Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly over the course of this season, despite the fact that both of those drivers drive four-car Ramrata back. It is certainly no real love lost between them. They are good friends. They've been able to sort everything out behind the scenes, but they have had their fair share of comings together, and we hope that that's not what ends out here today for those two drivers.
David Van Rooyen's certainly hoping that happens, but we want to see a clean run to the finish. We want to see a clean three-way battle for the win, and so far that's what we've gotten. But you now see that ever-critical 0 on the side of your screen on that ticker. All 3 of your lead cars are within a second of each other now. Holly extends the track a little bit on exit. That goes to show you how hard he's pushing. But here we go. It's a 3-way fight now, and Kalin is way, way closer here on the exit of turn 14. He's going to go for a move into turn 1 here, I think.
Yeah, let's call it 0.3 of a second there, separating Greenhoe from Kalin. A little bit of a bobble there under speed for Mark Kalin, but I think he's still going to try to think about that move. He's definitely got the overspeed. Here comes the 62 down to the inside, and that's going to be Kelly Greenhoe trying to give him out. No space at all. Pitches him down on the corner, but that's going to force Greenhoe wide. It's Kelly now able to fight back to be able to keep himself going forward and get the line going down into turn 2 like we've seen so many times here at the Hungaroring. He's a little bit earlier on the binders, tries to chuck it down, a little bit of side-to-side contact, and Kelly Greenhoe able to keep himself ahead.
Mark Kalin is not going to be a happy camper, though. Kelly Greenhoe gives him the squeeze of the century into turn 1 and then misses the bottom of the track a little bit into turn 3. So Mark Kalin is going to be getting hot under the collar, but I think he knows by the fact that he was able to make that move, or at least that attempt on a move into turn 1, he knows he's quicker, and if he can just re-rack here, hope that Bradley Holly doesn't do anything too scary in the background, he's got another shot at Greenhoe into turn 1 if he wants to take it.
Yes, indeed he does. As you can see what all of that action has done to your race protagonist here. Throw a blanket over him. Only 0.6 of a second separating all of them. This is very, very close running. We ride on board with Bradley Holly right now, who certainly wants a big helping of this action. If he can get a little bit of a poke there down to the inside for Mark Kalin, that's actually going to slow him up. Does Bradley decide to make a move here now going down into turn 12? He's going to back off, not wanting to take the low percentage move there. They stay single file.
Yeah, two different stories of two different amounts of patience there. Kalin went for a little bit of an impatient move into turn 11, killed his momentum down the straight, almost let Holly get to the inside. But luckily for Mark, Brad was patient, and I think he knows that the best thing to do here is let Mark get through on Kelly Greenhoe and then try and follow him through instead of fighting with Mark for second and letting Kelly run away for this win. But here we go again. Kalin's got the run. He's going to snake around the front straight. That's actually going to kill Kalin's momentum entirely. I don't even think he's going to have to block into turn 1 here. The snake, very, very effective in these MX-5s where you can kill a lot of momentum by swerving like that. Kalin's going to try and go around the outside, but that's almost impossible at turn 1. He's going to have to wait for another lap.
Yes, he is. He's going to have to try Holly, taking a little bit of a look there. And by the way, as they crossed over the line with 3 minutes to go, that is going to mean that we are 2 laps to go here at the Hungaro Ring. There's another look for Mark Kalin down to the inside of Kelly Greenhoe as they work their way through turn 2. Not able to get that one to fly necessarily, but they're going to be single file now coming out of turn 3. Are we going to see an aggressive move coming up the hill into turn 4? Kalin certainly thinks about it. Greenhoe covers him off, and they're going to stay single file as they work their way up the hill. Greenhoe getting a little bit onto the curbing there, and you've got to be careful. That can really upset the balance of the car as now they work their way up the hill again, up through turn 5, and begin the single file part of the track.
Single file through turn 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. This is just the waiting game for Mark Kalin. He knows he has the pace. He knows he can get a good exit out of turn 14 and go for a move into 1. But he needs to time this perfectly. He needs to get a good run here down the back straight after these few corners. And just to tell you how slow these guys are going while they're fighting like this, last laps for each one of these drivers a 2:06. David Van Rooij's in the 2:04s behind them. So these guys all slowing each other down in the fight for victory. But luckily for them, they do have quite a big barrier back to Van Rooij in the back of your screen. And Kalin's getting very aggressive. He knows he only has one more lap to do this.
Yes, he does, and that patience starting to run its course here. Kalin trying to take a little bit of a leaf there out of Kelly Greenhoe's book, maybe take a little bit of a later apex there down through turn 13. They now bring their way down through turn 14 for the penultimate time. Oh, a little bit of a look there for Bradley Holly down to the inside, and I think Kalin may have kicked up a little bit of the curb, and now it looks like the battle is going to be on for P2. Holly trying to stick in behind the snake, Kelly Greenhoe, holding on to about a 3.5 of a second advantage. That may help him to be able to keep himself out in front. They dive down into turn 1. Kalin indicates that he's going for the attack. Greenhoe covers him off. Holly waiting to pick up the pieces.
Did not work out at all for Mark Kalin there. He tried to beat Kelly Greenhoe at his own game, and it did not work out down the front straight. Tried to dive it down to the inside in turn 1, and again, just couldn't spook Kelly Greenhoe off the line. He's going to stay ahead of Holly. For the moment, Holly almost puts the bumper to him again, but backs off. If Kalin wants to win this race, he's going to have to do it in a very unorthodox place, and I think he might just go for it in turn 4 here coming up.
He got a great run there out of 3. He's going to look down to the inside, trying to force Kelly Greenhoe off the line. Thinks about it, but Greenhoe's got it covered. And they're both able to run through the corner nice and easy. That's going to build the gap between Greenhoe and Kalin up to about 3.5 of a second as they work their way up through turn 5. Now going down into the snaking section of the track. No overtaking here for the next couple of corners, but as you said, Joey, is there going to be a chance to be able to get the move going down into maybe turn 12?
That's what Kalen's hoping for. He might be hoping for a little bit earlier, and that's a low percentage move, and that's exactly what can happen when you make a move like that. Kalen muscles Greenhoe out of the way there through turn 10, or through turn 9 rather. That might put him under the ire of the stewards. That was high contact racing, and now Holly's gonna get by him anyway. Holly under braking into 12. It didn't work out at all for Kalen.
No, it didn't. Kalen forced offline there, and he's going to go even farther offline as here comes Kelly Greenhoe back on through. Move Kelly Greenhoe into second, Mark Kalen into third, Bradley Holly up into first place with a well-timed, well-put-together, well-thought-out move. Here they come through the final corner, waiting for the flag, and that's green. Oh my goodness, that's Mark Kalen coming down pit lane. Is that an incident limit? As there,
100%.
Bradley Holly takes victory. Kelly Greenhoe in second, and I think David Van Roy's going to be third.
And Kalen's not going to be able to serve that penalty, I don't think. So that's going to be something like a 40-second penalty for Mark Kalen. He's going to finish in 11th or 12th. That's disastrous for Mark Kalen. He's going to go from a sure second to likely out of the top 10. And he had to go for the move, but I think he knew that was not going to work out. And the second he hit Kelly Greenhoe, he definitely let Kelly by there going down into turn 13. He knew that move didn't really work out. And Bradley Holly, the third of the drivers in that line, he ends up winning the race. How? Who'd have thunk? But he always finds out a way to do it. I'm at a loss for words.
Yes, he does. Bradley Holly just proving his worth. And there is that pass that you saw. High commitment there from the 184 going down into turn 12. Just a brilliant move. And then that off track there from Kalen, we believe that's what triggered that penalty there for him, and Kelly Greenhoe able to pick up the pieces. My goodness gracious, Joey.
And now we actually just have to sit and wait here for everybody to cross the line to see if Mark Kalen's going to be penalized. This happened a few weeks ago at the Red Bull Ring in the F3 series, where we literally just had to wait for the entire field to roll by before, I believe, David Holland got something like a 40-second penalty that actually took him out of the victory in the pro class of the F3 series, gave the win to Connor Wagner. But here's Garrett Cottingham crossing the line. We didn't mention him very much. He literally showed up in the session 5 seconds before the race started, and he kept the car on track. He got no penalties. He finished the race. That's about as good as you can ask for Garrett Cottingham. And now we wait. Does the timing screen adjust, or does Kalen get to hold his third?
Well, let's take a look there as it comes across, and indeed, he is not going to be able to hold on to that, as Bradley Holly will take the victory over Kelly Greenhoe, and David Van Roy coming home in third. Kalen will be demoted all the way back into P9 as a result of that late penalty. It was Michael Chase and Kevin Berquist rounding out your top 5, Derek Putnam in P6, with Patrick Cowgill and Ian Cabana behind them. As we mentioned before, Mark Kalen was P9, followed by Malcolm Foster in P10. 11th was Ryan Kings, followed by Charles Sumner, Rodrigo Michelin, Austin Bartlett Chase, Garrett Cottingham, and Andrew Sharp rounding out your field. And that is going to bring us right to our interview here with Bradley Holly. And Bradley, talk me through those last couple of laps. You just looked like a shark waiting for prey there at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Mark. I knew Mark was going to be aggressive, and I was kind of just waiting for him to make a move, and unfortunately it led to contact and gave me the win when I honestly probably didn't deserve it.
Well, I mean, you were up there fighting through the majority of the race, and it looked like a little bit early on that you didn't put up too much of a battle when Kelly Greenhoe went to make the move on you. Was that part of the plan, or did you want to kind of lead all the way through?
Yeah. Again, I try to take care of my tires as best I can, and it sometimes it works and some days it doesn't. And today I felt like at the end of that race I had a little bit more pace, but not much more than Kelly and Mark.
Well, it certainly turned out well for you, and this is going to help to extend your championship lead. Can you start to look at the trophy here at this point, or is it still race by race?
With the way the points are spread out, it's definitely race by race until probably the last couple. Because we saw last season where I had a 30-point lead and ended up losing it because I had 2 bad races due to being taken out or being wrecked, and it can go either way. I'll just have to try to stay on track and try to stay in the top 5.
Well, Bradley, if anybody can do it, I'm sure it is you, my friend. But anybody you want to thank here tonight?
Definitely want to thank the Waterback guys and Mark. He basically handed me the win tonight, unfortunately, but it was a good race. I'd like to thank you guys for broadcasting week in and week out. I always enjoy watching y'all's races, and then everybody at the PRL.
All right. Well, thank you, Bradley. That was Bradley Holly, your victor here tonight. And Joey, I believe you have caught up with our second place finisher there, Kelly Greeno.
Well, Kelly, I'm sure that's not the way you wanted the race to end. Talk us through the contact there between Kalen and yourself in turn 10.
It is what it is. I'm not going to say I've never made a mistake or went for anything. I wasn't expecting it coming right there, so in hindsight, it would have been a perfect move, but there was no way he was holding that next, apex with that much speed. It is what it is. I could have, seen it. I saw it coming. I could have really, really braked and stayed wide and just let them go, but I was trying to kind of just leave enough room for him, and it bumped me out of the way. What I was explaining to him, which you guys may or may not have heard on the radio, was, he apologized right away. It happens. I'm not mad at Mark. It is what it is. I'm already over it. It's just a bummer because I really felt that was the win. And, had he have done that and knocked me out of the way and then had a service penalty or whatever and I still got the win, it would have been one thing. But Brad was right there to take it, and now it's pretty much over. So that's all right. I'll be back next week.
You will be back next week, and let's talk about the championship because it's still in contention. We just heard Brad in the interview previously talk about how he ended up losing that championship last season to Jose Gonzalez with a 35-point lead. After tonight, I imagine it's going to be something like maybe 22, 23 points between you and Brad, so 4 races to go. You think there's still time to turn it around?
Yeah, anything can happen. I just got to win out. I think it's tough for anyone to be that close to him because he's, with the drop week, all of his weeks that count are wins now. So he's going to be tough to catch, but he has been in the couple seasons I've been here, and I imagine he will, continue to keep that pace. It's been fun seeing Mark up there the last several races with us as well. Bummed that Ryan had a little spin. I didn't see it, or an accident right in front of him or something, so we'll go take a look at that. But either way, it's been great racing. I hope we can get back to those 20-30 car fields next season.
Well, let's go from the long term to the short term. Next week, Sebring Club Layout, a very short track, a very interesting track. How are you feeling about that place?
Great. It was on the schedule for the production car challenge 2 or 3 weeks ago. I ran quite a few and had some pretty good pace and was up front in most of the splits I ran, so bring it on.
All right, we'll see you next week, and we wish you good luck next week. Hopefully that production car challenge experience comes good.
Thanks, guys.
That was P2 Kelly Greenhoe. I'm sure wishing for a little bit more, and coming in now was 3rd place on the road, ended up in 9th place. Mark Kalen is with DJ.
Mark, a heartbreaking end there for you, my friend. How are you feeling?
Just gutted. More so for Kelly, because I don't like racing like that. I don't boot people out of the way just to go for a win. But I did feel I had to make a move. It was the last lap for the race win. I knew I only had 2 incident points to play with, and I felt it was worth the risk. I just carried too much speed, and granted, he was going to pinch me, which I would have expected nothing less, but I just carried too much speed and poof, got into Kelly. I hate it for him. I ruined his potential race win, and that makes 2 golf cars that I hit tonight. Obviously, the first one wasn't my fault, but still, I hate it for those guys, and I love racing with them. They're good, clean racers, and I just made a mistake.
Well, obviously that is one of the things that happens there, and Kelly had already said, you guys had chatted about it and that kind of thing. But looking ahead as we do get going into Sebring Club level, Kelly kind of put down a little bit of a marker there, saying that he had done some of the production car challenges there. How do you feel about that track? I don't recall that track off the top of my head, so we'll have to just go in on Monday, start practicing, and hopefully we'll be up front with the rest of the boys, and hopefully I keep it a little cleaner next time. I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly pays me back a little bit, or
shows his displeasure out on the track. But like Ross Chastain, I probably have it coming.
Well, my friend, is there anybody you want to thank for the run here tonight?
Yeah, everybody over at the Whataback crew, working hard every night to try and, be as quick as we are. My friends and family for supporting us, the PRL for the series, all our awesome sponsors that help support the PRL, and of course you guys up in the Race Spot booth doing these awesome broadcasts.
When you guys keep it that interesting out on track, it makes my job easy. So I got to thank you for that, Mark.
Well, no problem. I'm glad I could help out with that.
There you go, my friend. That was Mark Kalin, third out on the track, ninth, unfortunately, in the standing order. But, Joey, that is going to get us talking there. As you mentioned earlier, Sebring International Club layout, the testing layout for IndyCar, not necessarily as familiar to all the drivers out there. I think it's going to be a really fun race.
And I'm sure Sebring will be familiar, but they've got to familiarize themselves with the shortened layout, with where that turnoff is. It's kind of a weird square section, and then you rejoin the normal top section of the track. But production car challenge experience, who knew that could be so helpful? But we'll look for Kelly Greenhoe here next week. Sebring International Club, the acronym SIC, I think is fitting because it's going to be sick.
Well, speaking of sick, we head to the land down under because we are not done here tonight. We've got one more race on the books. That's right. The GT4 Sprint Series is ready to go racing from Sandown, one of the newest tracks here on the service. And Joey, I'll be the first to admit, when this first showed up as a track that was being added here, I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I've done some research, and this is a fun circuit.
It's a road course that was built around a horse track. It's a very strange track, as many of the tracks in that region of the world are. It's almost like a street circuit, but it's a road course. We've heard the Hungaroring described that way, but this place is definitely like that. There's one high-speed section in the back half of the track, but it's a lot of 90-degree corners, a lot of big curbs, and a lot of very, very tight sections for these very, very lumbery GT4 cars. We'll see GT3 cars tomorrow night take this on, but GT4 cars at Sandown, big challenge. We've actually got 19 drivers in the field tonight.
Yes, we do, and there's a look at where we've been and where we're going. Two pretty twisty little circuits there in the form of Lime Rock and Sandown, but then we head to Road America, and these cars are going to stretch their legs a little bit, then a little bit twisty again as we go to Brands Hatch, Road Atlanta, and then rounding out the season at Fuji. And I am very, very excited for all four of those races, as they are some of my favorite circuits on the iRacing service here, so it's going to be very interesting to see how everything is going to be able to play itself out here. Let's also go ahead and take a look at the championship standings. And up front, well, it has been all Sean Campbell all of the time, holding on to a nearly 20-point lead over Owen Watts. Campbell undefeated thus far in the BMW. Behind them, it was Keith Bonilla and then Adam Brockway and Jerome Bertome, who are in a very, very close battle for third place there. Darren Rutherford also keeping his eyes on the prize as well, not too far back from there. Carlos Lopez sits in 7th, followed by Rob Campbell and Michael Diaz, with Brian Vorse 10th place. As we take a look there over at the Teams Championship as well, a little bit spread out at the top. Precision Racing Esports leading the way, but Hardpoint by Delta Sport doing a good job to keep that nice and tight. YS Motorsport GT4 in a very, very fierce battle, though, with Hardpoint by Delta Sport. Western Mass Motorsports a fair ways back, with Lunatic Racing trying to be able to gain in on them to take that 4th place away. Throttle Thursday, a little bit of an island unto themselves, as is Thin Line Racing, but Mean Guy Racing locked in a good battle there with 499 Racing for 8th place. And finally, rounding out that top 10, it is RSR by Butt Kicker. And that is going to bring us here to the action out on track. Joey, we take a little bit of a ride on board there. Some of these very quick straightaways and some of these quick chicanes. And I've got to tell you something. I had a little birdie tell me here tonight, a birdie named Sean Campbell, that he was a little bit fearful of the McLaren around here. He said that the acceleration of the McLaren and the size of these straightaways should favor the British manufacturer.
Well, what's on pole but a McLaren in the hands of Owen Watts? The McLaren also almost kills Francis Castillo-Romero into turn 1 there. Not sure which one of the hard point by Delta Sport McLarens that was, but yeah, the McLaren, it's looking slippery. It's looking good through these tight corners. It's looking very good at hopping the curbs. Could be the car to have here, but we've seen Sean Campbell kind of overdrive the limits of the car. I know that's physically impossible. That's kind of a cliche, but it seems like Sean Campbell still pulls it off anyway. The BMW, not always the best car in this league, but he has won every single race this season in that car.
Yes, he has, and it has been a testament to him that we have seen him win in many, many different fashions. A close slugfest in Montreal, pit stop strategy coming into favor of that BMW. Really, any way you can imagine of winning, Sean Campbell has done it here at this season. But right now, as they run, he only sits in second. Granted, he's only 5/1000ths of a second off of Owen Watts in front of him.
And Owen Watts has been able to keep up the fight. Like you mentioned, at Montreal, at Imola, at Lime Rock last week, Owen Watts has put up incredible fights, but unfortunately, they've all come to naught because it's been Sean Campbell who's come out on top every single time. But one of these weeks, I think it's got to change. Nobody has ever had a perfect season in PRL history. Sean Campbell could be the first, but I think the statistics suggest that a perfect season is very unlikely. And if anyone's going to take that first win away, it'll be Owen Watts.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. We take a look on board, though, of Adam Brockway working his Aston Martin around. Currently the highest fielded Aston Martin right now. Not going to be an improvement there on that lap, as it looks like he got a little bit clobbery there coming through the chicane of turns 11 and 12. Right now, all these drivers trying to see what they can do. Here is third place driver Michael Diaz trying to improve on a 1:11.942.
And Michael Diaz is back in the field after a few weeks off. Good to see Michael back in the fray here. He was one of the big three. He's been up there with Watts and Campbell fighting for this whole season, but we've missed him for the last couple weeks. Now he navigates through a little bit of lap traffic, doing very well to get out of the way. I believe that's Matias Arangua in the white Aston Martin who got out of the way there, but through the final corner, doesn't hop the curb too much, doesn't ollie on the last curb like Adam Brockway did. It's been a tidy lap for Michael Diaz as he crosses the line. Unfortunately, it's just not faster in the fittingly true blue Mercedes.
Yes, it is not there, as he's going to have a little bit of time to improve. Let's check back on Blake Ziti, another one of the Aston Martin drivers. He currently sits back in 12th right now as he flings that car through the past couple of chicanes, working his way around the chicanes that really litter this circuit. It is a pretty much a power circuit with some pretty slow speed corners thrown in there in the forms of turns 2 and 3, then through 7 and 8, and down through 11 and 12 as well. The 11 and 12, the corners that currently Ziti is bringing that car through, trying to improve on a 1:12.9. Is he going to be able to do it? No, a 1:13.6, all that Ziti can do. Here comes Sean Campbell, though, the reigning points leader. What does he have in the basket?
Jeez, this is like a roller coaster through the fast sector at the end of the back straight. The BMW trampolining around just like it did in the final corner at Lime Rock a week ago. It seems like it's very difficult to drive, but Sean Campbell somehow driving it as quickly as he ever has, hops the curb, and unfortunately, I think I just jinxed him because that's going to be an off track, and Owen Watts actually improves to extend the gap from 5,000ths to more like 500ths. 500ths, what a huge gap that is.
Yeah, massive, massive gap for sure, I've got to say, as we do have to remember that this is a less than 2-mile circuit. It is 1.93 miles, so it's not like those super small gaps are nothing to shake a stick at. We're expecting to see some smaller gaps over the course of the field, but still, as we watch here with Diaz bringing his way now down out of turn 9, trying to see what he is going to be able to get here as he brings his way into the final sector right now.
Mercedes probably a lot kinder through this sector of the track. It's almost flat out. It's not flat out. You do have to lift. You might even have to brake just a little bit, but it is so high speed. You clobber that curb, and you can actually see on that onboard, the Mercedes is just so much kinder to its driver over that curb. Might have gotten off track there on the exit, but 2 more corners to go for Michael Diaz. If he can find 2/10ths, he might dump Sean Campbell down 1 more spot through the final corner. Hops the curb very, very big time. 1:11.9, time to beat. 1:12.1, the same lap he tried to run last time when he didn't improve as well.
Yeah, so it looks like he's a little stuck in his ways. There we take a look on Rob Campbell, another Aston Martin driver, as he works his way through the steep part of the track, going into that final couple of sectors there, trying to see what he's able to do. Big rubber of the curbs there for the Aston Martin. Going to bring it out of here through the flat out turn 13. Perfectly legal to cut the corner there, as you saw him do. Looks like that's not going to be an improvement there. Off by about 2 tenths of a second, and with that, the checker flag is going to fly. So we will follow Francis Castillo Romero as he brings his car down through the sectors now, coming out of turn 9 through the sweeping turn 10, trying to see if he's able to get anything out of this car. It looks like he's slowing quite a bit there. I don't think this is going to be a quick one for Castillo Francis Romero.
No, he's going to bring it down pit road, but here is our pole sitter, Owen Watts. He's not satisfied. He's going to try and go even faster. Going to whip that McLaren to the line. Does he improve? He does, and that's a power move by Owen Watts to go from pole to even more pole. He's put 2.5 tenths over Sean Campbell. If that's not Sean Campbell's perfect season under threat, I don't know what is.
Well, Campbell responded. They were able to put down a time of a 1:11.72. That's going to put him under 2 tenths of a second off. But your two championship protagonists will line up in the front row here with Watts and Campbell in that 1 and 2 position. Michael Diaz will be behind them in P3, followed by Adam Brockway, with Francis Castillo Romero and Keith Bonilla lining up in P6. P7 going to be Rob Campbell, followed by Jerome Bethune. In P8, Greg Doucette will be 9th, followed by Matthias Arangua. Drew Price and Jacob Kruger round out your top 12. 13th is going to be Darren Rutherford in the Aston Martin, the Aston Martin, followed by Blake Ziti. Then Carlos Lopez and Nicholas Karangis will be in 15th and 16th. 17th will be Jeffrey Seabach with Brian Hoskins in P18, and P19 will be Brian Vorse, who will bring up the back of the field here. Track conditions right now a little bit on the chilly side. It's 69 degrees Fahrenheit right now as they try to get themselves going. 44% humidity. That means a little bit of air to be pushed around. That could help out a little bit of the draft. But look at that wind. 15 to 16 miles an hour gusting. That could throw some of these drivers off big time.
It could, and especially on cold tires, on a cold track. Sandown, Sundown is a song by Gordon Lightfoot, and you are going to need a Lightfoot on those cold tires. Was that worth that reference? I think it was. I hope that goes to show you how difficult it's going to be on the opening laps with aged Canadian music references. But either way, it's going to be tricky on lap 1, especially with a grid of just shy of 20 cars taking on these extremely narrow confines.
Hey, as someone who has seen Gordon Lightfoot live and loved every minute of it, I fully appreciated that reference there, Joey, so thank you for that. As we get gridded up here, I did get a message from Brian Vorse. Looks like he's having some computer issues, so he's hoping to be able to grid up here in time, but it may be a little tricky for him to come in that hard point by Delta Sport driver. Take a look here at the grid, waiting for everything to tick away, and it looks like Vorse has been able to join up here, so good to see him out there. Oh, no, it doesn't look like it. That's my bad. I had a little error there on my live timing and scoring sheet. But the Porsche pace car leads these cars down turn 10 and down into the final corners. And the question we ask, and the question we've been asking over the course of this season, can Owen Watts take the fight here to Sean Campbell? We will have to see, weaving back and forth to try to warm up those tires as they make their way out of the final corners. Now getting on to the short little blast here between turns 9 and 10 as they get ready to go. Joey, is this the time that we see Watts pull this off?
Well, your guess is also my guess. This is Owen Watts' best chance. He's put the fight to Sean Campbell many times this season, but we'll see if he can finally put it all together tonight.
Yes, we will, as they check themselves up there, coming out of turn 13, getting ready to get on the loud pedal. All eyes on Barney the Flagman, and there goes the the green. We are racing in Sandown. Great start there for Owen Watts. An even better start, I've got to say, for Michael Diaz, who's going to be challenging Sean Campbell going down into the first corner. It is a big, big breakaway from Owen Watts. The Mercedes there of Diaz later onto the binders, tries to force that BMW out wide, but carrying momentum, bouncing over the curbs, and we've got a couple of cars around in the back.
And that is a lot of cars around in the back. That's Drew Price around. I think Francis Castillo-Romero just barely recovers. And, of course, the number 8 of Keith Bonilla around, and Rob Campbell went around in that sandwich as well. Those are those tight quarters into turn 1, then into turn 2. It's always difficult to run side by side here. It's impossible to run 3 wide, and unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that happen in tight quarters at a track like this. But our top 3, top 4 have all survived.
Yes, they have, and they've got a nice little breakaway ahead of Greg Doucette, but they're starting to form themselves up into a little bit of a couplet here, 2 different couplets as they went down the back straightaway. Looks like here that Diaz is able to close in a little bit more on Sean Campbell, but big hops there of the curve as they work their way down through 11 and 12, down through 13, and we get to see what that BMW and the McLaren really have in store for one another. Looks like in the back there, Jerome Bethune able to make a little bit of a move to be able to get by the number 13 of Darren Rutherford. Rutherford trying to fight back, though, down the main straightaway.
Aston Martin v BMW. BMW seems to be the faster car in a straight line, at least judging by Sean Campbell's initial start, and Jerome is going to be able to hang on to that position ahead of Darren Rutherford, at least for now. But let's take a look at the calamity on lap 1. We tuned in a little bit late there, so I can't really attribute any blame. Looks like Rob Campbell might have come over to the left side of our screen a little bit, but you can see the end result, no matter whose fault it was. That's quite a calamity.
Oh, and something has happened to Owen Watts. My goodness, Owen Watts down to 4th place. The leader of the race getting a problem here, and he's about to be demoted down into 5th potentially as the Porsche of Greg Doucette tries to take him around turn 6. It looks like Watts is going to be able to put up a defense there, but this is heartbreak for the hard-point by Delta Sport driver.
Didn't even make it he made it 1 lap in the lead, couldn't quite make it 2. Oh, and that's the worst possible place to lose it. That's through the last corner, if I am correct. No, that's through turn 2 and 3. That's at the start of the lap. He just got on the curb, scraped the floor of the car, and he couldn't turn, but the grass was able to turn him, and that spun him around in the wall. Very, very close there. So not only has Owen Watts lost the lead, he's got heavy rear end damage. And what looks so promising for Owen Watts is essentially over already.
Yes, it is, and you can really tell that by just how much he is getting hounded by the Porsche. Another little bit of a move here. This is, I think, a replay at the start. Rob Campbell there in that pink machine. Yeah, I've got to say there, Joey, that was really caused by that pink of Rob Campbell just moving across the track a little bit too aggressively.
Yeah, just didn't really register that there were 2 cars to the right there. But maybe the battle for the lead isn't over, because look at this. Michael Diaz and Sean Campbell and Adam Brockway are making a little bit of a 3-car train here with 3 different manufacturers. Sean Campbell's lost Owen Watts as a threat for the win, but he's still going to have to fight for it.
Yes, he is. This is not going to be out of the park here quite yet, as there we see them coming out of the final corners now. The Mercedes trying to put that grunt, that muscle that we love to hear out on the circuit to use, trying to keep that gap close behind himself and Sean Campbell, but it looks like Campbell starts to eke away before the draft comes into play here. Diaz going to have to stay behind to the tune of about 0.4 of a second as they work their way through turn 1. Good clobbering of the curb there up ahead for Sean Campbell, but we have seen just how much this track can bite if you are not careful. All of these drivers have to be absolutely on it for the entire way around this 1.93 mile circuit.
And we just drove through the corner where Owen Watts had his issue, I believe, at least from the aerial shot. That's just such an easy place to make a mistake. Get a little bit too wide. Speaking of too wide, we got too wide down the back straight. I'm going to end my thought there. Francis Castillo-Romero getting by Greg Doucette. Remember, Francis was one of the drivers who got hit on lap 1. He got spun around. He recovered, and he might get spun around by Greg Doucette there. You can't really send it in there, and I think Greg knows that. And Jerome, no, that's Owen Watts. That's another mistake for Owen Watts.
And that is going to be very, very tough there for the hard point by Delta Sport driver as he goes off into the kitty litter. Oh my goodness, losing positions hand over fist. He's all the way down into 10th. He's now going to have Nicholas Carangis coming up behind him.
And It's just getting worse and worse for Owen Watts. This might just end up being his drop week, but let's ride on board with him through the fast kinks. Oh, he's already lost it. He's already lost it in turn 6. I wonder actually if there's some suspension damage on the back of that car, because that was not just losing it on cold tires. That was something broken in the car. I think he's going to bring it down pit road and fix that damage, because that car was not healthy through turn 6 there.
No, it was not. As we focus here on Jerome Berthome, trying to hold off that attack from Darren Rutherford. Remember, Berthome able to get this position on the first lap. That was a little bit of a close run there with Jerome and the barriers, but he is able to escape it there in that BMW. There we get a bird's eye view of the Canadian driver as he tries to work his way, holding on to P6.
The BMW actually looks the most similar to a V8 supercar in this field, in my opinion, so it actually looks like it kind of fits, even though it seems so awkward to drive around here. He doesn't seem to have the same hops that Sean Campbell did through turn 7 and 8 there in the middle of that high-speed section, so I wonder if that's maybe a difference in setup between Jerome's car and Sean Campbell's car. This is, of course, an open series, so I don't know what's going on there, but Jerome's BMW seems to be a little bit less bouncy than what appears to be the faster one up front.
Well, that is one of the most crucial things to tweak and tune here is the springs and the dampers. As here comes Rutherford thinking about a move to the outside of turn 1 in that Aston Martin. He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. He's not going to go for it there as he pulls himself back into line, just trying to keep pressure on the back of the 217 here as they now work their way through turn 2 and 3, trying to see what they can get. But back to that point, the springs and the dampers on these cars is one of the big things that you can adjust, and so I've got to think that that could be something. We've got Seebach, I believe, Seebach and Kruger both around.
And Campbell's around too. Cars all over the place here. We're not going to get to talk about springs and dampers. The drivers are putting on a little bit too much of a show here in the grass. I don't know if that was damage related for Campbell as well, because that just looked like the car went around completely.
Yeah, it certainly did. Let's take a look at the first incident here. This was Seebach just getting kind of hit into the back there, I've got to be said, by that Mercedes, and that sent them around. And then we take a look here at Rob Campbell as he comes back through. Oh,
like
that
Ziti.
was a big how you doing there from Ziti.
Well, I guess that's kind of karma for Rob Campbell, because what he did on lap 1, unfortunately, had been done to him by Blake Ziti, and he gets knocked off the road. Seebach, that's unfortunate for him too. That was a great run for him, and he just got punted up the back by the 144 of Jacob Kruger, unfortunately. And that leaves us with about 10 cars on track that haven't been involved in an incident yet. And look at this, fight for the lead. Michael Diaz wants to steal it from Sean Campbell on track. That hasn't always been the ticket to victory, but he's going for it.
Yes, he is. He thought about it, but he's going to find himself pulling back into line as we ride on board with Adam Brockway in the YS Motorsports GT4 machine. That Aston Martin trying to see if there could be a little bit of a battle in front of him that could allow for an attack to be had as they snake their way through turn 9 right now, getting under the bridge as they build up power here before coming down into this final chicane that really breaks up the momentum as they work their way around, trying to see what they can get. And they're going to get the power down here on the main straightaway. This is the closest we've seen Diaz be.
And that is worrying, because that means Sean Campbell's doing some funny business up front. He's slowing himself down. He's saving fuel. You can pass him on track, but he's got tricks up his sleeve. Who knows what he's planning in the pits? Who knows how many fewer seconds he's going to spend in his box? Michael Diaz, I think he wants this track position. And that's basically all you can do here to try and beat Sean Campbell. You can save as much fuel as you want back here. He might peek to the inside here, down the back straight. He thought about it on the last lap, trying to go for a move into turn 6, but it's just so unlikely for that to work that I think he's probably going to be content to run in second, but if the opportunity arises, I would not expect him to hang back.
Wouldn't either there. And speaking of not hanging back, that was Nicholas Karangis there sending an absolutely mega move down into the inside there of Drew Price in the McLaren. Not able to stick there for the Porsche driver, but it now looks like here that the 311 could get a little bit of a tow coming down the back straightaway into the kink that is turn 6. He's going to poke his nose to the inside, tries to get it in the McLaren, able to fend him off.
Yeah, that's not a move that ever works. That's exactly the same thing that we saw Greg Doucette do. He peeked to the inside and then gave it up because he knew that move was not going to work, and that's Very smart driving again, and that's the way you need to drive at a place that punishes mistakes as heavily as Sandown does. One mistake, and there are some very hard walls and some very high-speed impacts waiting for you. So conservative driving, just like at the Hungaroring last time out, is really paying off for some of these guys.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you're seeing these drivers here of this top three certainly being conservative. One driver who's not necessarily being conservative there, Blake Ziti, who looks like he's had a little bit of a round, and he's going to find himself down pit lane. As now we continue to watch Michael Diaz hunting behind Sean Campbell. Campbell's been able to grow that gap to about 5/10 of a second as they work their way down through the back section of the track. It looks like that gap is holding at about 5/10, coming down to 4/10 there under the Constantina effect, coming in under braking.
This is kind of the story of the season, but let's take a look at what happened to Blake Ziti through the final corner. That's weird. He got loose before the curb on the outside, and then no saving that. And again, another just very awkward wall there. It's very difficult to hit that wall. Unfortunately, Blake found a way to, and that Aston Martin joined the club. That's 5 cars with heavy damage in the back of the field now.
Yes, it is. Lots of drivers finding the walls here as they dive onto the binders for the top 3 right now. Diaz closing the gap a little bit. The draft certainly coming to help him out as they run. And not able to get that move crucially done over Sean Campbell. Now the question's going to be here with about 28 minutes left to go in this race is fuel strategy. We've seen Sean Campbell absolutely be able to ace that strategy over the course of this season. Could tonight be another running of that?
Well, if I have to predict, I'd say yes, because every single week he pulls something out of a hat. But these last 2 weeks, actually, Owen Watts has done far better in being able to hold with Sean Campbell after the pit cycle. We saw the huge duel at Imola. We saw a great race at Lime Rock last week as well. So Sean Campbell does not necessarily have the same advantage he once had, but he's a driver who, when he's up front, he stays up front no matter what it takes. I thought Francis Castillo-Romero was falling back. No, that was just a timing glitch, so I shouldn't have mentioned that at all. But here comes Michael Diaz. He might take a peek for the lead again into turn 1, the only real good passing spot in this track.
Well, this is the closest we've seen Diaz be. He's got it under 2/10 of a second here, but he is going to choose discretion as the better part of valor and stay in line here as they work their way around. Looks like he loses just a little bit of time there under braking coming through those first couple of corners, but he's able to very easily get it back up if he's able to work everything right.
Unfortunately, just a bad exit there out of turn 4 for Michael Diaz. I shouldn't say a bad exit, just a suboptimal exit when you're trying to race with Sean Campbell, who's been perfect all of this race in the first 8 minutes so far. Just about 7/10 of a second behind. Adam Brockway still putting the pressure on Diaz, but I wouldn't expect Brockway to go for a move for second either, because he knows that if you start racing with Michael Diaz, especially at a place like this where we're going side by side, is at its worst a death sentence, at its best an easy ticket to slowing yourself both down. He knows the best thing to do right now is just stick in the terrain and hope Diaz can stay close. And that's what he's doing right now, but it's looking like Sean Campbell had a very good last lap. The gap's up to a full second up front.
Yes, it is. He got the perfect jump there out of turn 13, and that's really going to help him accelerate up front and try to hold that on as much as possible. Now it looks like that battle could be between Diaz and Brockway, and I've got to think here maybe for Brockway that he's starting to worry that Diaz is not going to be able to keep up this pace. If he sees an opportunity, I think I may go for it here and see if I can have my hands at the leader.
I'd wait a few more laps for that, because you can see there at turn 4, Michael Diaz is already starting to bring the gap back down to 7/10, probably going to be around 6/10 by the end of this straight. So it was a bad lap for Diaz. It wasn't an especially good lap for Sean Campbell. It was a 1:12.4. So I'd say wait a little bit longer. Let Diaz keep playing the games. Let Sean Campbell keep dictating the pace up front. And then after the pit cycle, that's when everything goes out the window. It's almost like the Formula E races in the early days of that series. We would always say the first stage of the race was just kind of strategically planning your moves. You just kind of sat there in a line, and then once they did that switch, once they did that pit stop, everything went crazy. Everything was on the line, and that's how these GT4 races have gone as well.
Yes, they certainly have, but we've got another battle here to keep our eyes on, and that is between Drew Price and Nicholas Carangis here, working back for the top 10 right now. Carangis trying to keep up in that Porsche. Not the favored car this season that we've really seen it be in the last couple of seasons, but he is doing a fantastic job wheeling that 311 around here, doing absolutely everything that he can.
He's sticking with Drew Price a lot better than I expected him to, because once Price was able to get back by him, I thought he was just going to run away and maybe challenge Matias Arangua 5 seconds up the road, but no, Carangis has done a very good job of sticking to the back of Drew Price, and with a somewhat lower car count, this is a chance for a good result for Carangis, maybe a top 10 for one of the few times this season. I don't believe he's been top 10 many times before this season, but if he is here, that's a good result. Top half of the field, essentially. That's exactly what he wants. And with Greg Doucette in the top 5, that'll be a great result for both of those plaid Porsches.
Yes, it will. And by the way, we've had our first taker down pit lane, I believe. That's Francis Castillo Romero, looking like he's having some internet connectivity issues there. That was what that was showing up for me.
Courageous.
Oh, and he's going to spin it around, catching those curbs wrong. And that is going to be Carangis able to avoid the barriers there on the exit of the corner, but that is going to cost him a position to Jacob Kruger.
I don't know why we never learn. We should probably never say a driver is doing a good job again, because this is what happens every single time. He was having such a clean race, such a solid run, and unfortunately, such a tricky section of the track. It finally strikes for the Porsche. Let's take a look. Again, just through the middle of the corner. It's so high speed that if you get it even slightly wrong, if you land on one of those bounces even slightly wrong, it's impossible to save at that high speed. Luckily for Nicholas, he lost it in such a way that he was pointing in a safe direction. He's got no damage on that car, but what was potentially going to be a close fight for the top 10 is now separated by about 4 seconds between Price and Carangis, and there's now Kruger in the middle of that sandwich.
Yes, there is, doing an obligatory check here on the battle for the lead right now. Campbell, Diaz, and Brockway still running pretty close to one another. The gaps haven't really expanded nearly as much as we thought they would. It's still holding at about 0.6 of a second as we're seeing real fluctuations here over the course of different laps. It looks like it's very, very difficult, and that's not altogether unsurprising considering just how aggressive these curbs are. But to be able to keep it, that's a mistake! That's a mistake for Sean Campbell, and Diaz tries to force his way by, going up through turn 2. It's going to favor the Mercedes driver, and we've got a change for the lead.
We look away for a millisecond from Sean Campbell, and he throws it off the road. I don't even know what happened there. Did he hop the curb in turn 1? I don't know. We'll have to take a look at a replay, but he's not content to hang back in second. He's actually going to go by Michael Diaz on the straight. That looked like a move with no effort whatsoever as they still keep fanning out down the back straight. Just insanity in the first half of this lap, and I can't really explain any of it.
Neither can I. I think the best explanation I can give is that Diaz had a little bit of a bad exit there coming out of turn 4 because he was compromised coming through that corner as a result of overtaking Campbell, and Campbell was just better able to diamond off the corner and get the blast away. Now as they come down turns 11 and 12, let's see here, as this is really the closest we've seen Diaz run this entire race. Tries to get a nice little helping of the draft here as they work their way down through turn 1, working it now, trying to see what he can do, clearly indicating where he wants to go. Diaz gets on the binders, though, and they're not going to be able to get the move done.
Campbell again almost throws it off the road in turn 1. He did throw it off the road in the final corner. Luckily kept it off the grass, but this is the most I've seen Sean Campbell struggle in this entire season, which I guess goes to show how difficult this track is. But I've never seen him make so many mistakes and go wide so many times. Unfortunately for Michael Diaz, he wasn't able to capitalize on that mistake. It appears that he made another one himself and lost that position, and in the craziness of these last 2 laps, somehow none of these positions have changed, and Francis Castillo Romero has actually been able to close up the gap a little bit. His internet issues, that's a tongue twister, intermittent internet issues mean that we haven't been able to see his lap times, but he is absolutely catching this train, and it could be a 4-car train before we know it.
Yeah, it certainly could. He's only about 2.5 seconds behind as we tick just about over the halfway point here in this race. And there we see the top 3 drivers streaking their way down the main straightaway, and Castillo Romero able to bring that gap down underneath about 2.3 seconds here. That's the closest he's been. There you can see the visualization of it as they dive down into turn one, working their way around there. It looked like Campbell being a little less aggressive with that outside curbing that we saw him get thrown off a little bit earlier. So now we wait and see what they're able to do here as they work their way out of turn four.
Par for the course here, but the course is changing behind. 2.5 seconds is now the gap back to Francis Castillo-Romero. These guys can continue to run in a train like this, but they're going to have another car joining the back of that train very, very soon. Campbell clips the grass just a little bit on the entry of turn 6. He's got to be careful doing that, not to spin the car at ridiculously high speeds onto the entry of turn 6. He's clearly under pressure here. He is pushing very, very hard. If he's saving anything, I'd be very surprised, because Michael Diaz is really putting the pressure on. We thought it was going to be Owen Watts, but somebody else has taken up the post of putting the pressure on Sean Campbell, and Michael Diaz is doing a very, very good job of it.
Yes, he is. And the one thing we haven't really mentioned over the course of this race thus far, as we watch everybody working their way on the main straightaway right now, is the frankly pretty tricky pit entry here. Coming in at high commitment, high speed, could that be something that catches these drivers out on this new circuit?
I would hope that they've practiced it, but I can speak from experience. In the PRL F3 series, I guess I do have competition experience. I never practice my pit entries. It's a bad habit, but I'm always just too lazy and I always forget to do it. I almost got caught out at Phillip Island on Thursday, but I think these guys are probably more practiced than I am. I can imagine that Campbell and Diaz and Brockway and all of these guys have done their practice pit entries. They've done full race stints. They've done all their practice, and they shouldn't have any trouble with it like I did at Phillip Island. They'll be fine, and I hope I don't jinx it.
I hope we don't jinx it either, as we've seen the commentator's curse is pretty strong with us here tonight. But we will have to see as we tick down with about 18 minutes left to go in this race. Big clobber at the curbs there for Sean Campbell. This could be a little bit of a run here for Michael Diaz. He's only about 1.2 seconds behind, or 0.12 seconds behind here as they come down. Is Diaz going to have a look going down into that first corner? Yes, he is. Here comes that Mercedes powertrain. It's now a battle of the late breakers. Who's going to be able to do it? It looks like Campbell sweeps around the outside, tries to hold it at bay, and does hold him at bay.
Yeah, it's hard to outbrake Sean Campbell. It's almost impossible to outbrake Sean Campbell. I credit Michael Diaz for going for the attempt. He had to do it, and it could have worked, but unfortunately for him, he was trying to outbrake one of the best breakers in this series in a car that seems very, very good on the brakes. He's going to have to learn from that, and what he will learn from that is he's going to need an even better run out of the final corner. He's going to need to get even closer. He's going to have to pop out even earlier, and he's going to have to brake even later if he wants to get by Sean Campbell. You got all that, Michael? You think that'll be easy? I don't think it will, but he's got to make an attempt at it, and he's thinking the same things I am. If I can't make it like that, it's going to be awfully hard to get by Sean Campbell.
Yeah, going to be very, very tricky indeed to be able to get by, and we've seen just how much pressure Sean Campbell is able to withstand. And I wonder here at this point, as we are past the halfway point, if maybe some pit strategy could play into it, as as previously now officially confirmed, Francis Castillo-Romero is the first driver to come down pit lane, kicking off this pit stop cycle.
And that could be big, actually, because he was gaining on these guys as they were fighting. If he can get out into clean track, I think he will. He'll probably get out in a window between Karanjis and Campbell. That could be great for Francis Castillo-Romero as Diaz and Campbell, as Sean Campbell specifically, continue to fight. If Adam Brockway can join these two as well, again, he's fallen back just a little bit. This could be an undercut for Francis Castillo-Romero, and he could take a shocking lead here. I like this move. He had to do it to make up anything, and he has found a window. About 2 seconds behind Jacob Kruger. He's got clean track back there as well. Oh, and Campbell's off. Campbell's off. That's it.
Oh, and that's a big off. He's not able to collect it. He goes off into the kitty litter, sacrificing 2 positions to Diaz and Brockway, and inevitably a third when Castillo-Romero comes back out.
And you could see that mistake happening from the beginning of the corner, and it's just impossible to save. It's impossible to slow down at that point. I'd expect Sean Campbell to bring it down pit road this time to minimize the time loss, but no, he's not. Brockway is. That is a bizarre turn of events. Adam Brockway brings it down pit road. It's now Sean Campbell's second, 3.8 seconds behind Michael Diaz. What a turn of events, and the biggest mistake, essentially the only mistake we've seen Sean Campbell make all season.
Yes, indeed, and that is certainly going to throw a big wrench into the works, as this is pretty much going to leave Diaz and Brockway to be able to scrap with themselves, at least when we see where Castillo Romero comes out in relation to them. I can tell you that Adam Brockway was a little bit slower in the box, but it looks like Castillo Romero is well behind as we take a look here at exactly what happened. Just the same issue that we saw before a couple other drivers earlier on in the race.
Yeah, he hopped the curb on the inside. We've seen many unique ways to lose the car through that section of the track, but through turns 7 and 8, Campbell finds a fairly easy mistake to make. You hop the inside of the track too much, and in a trampolining BMW, you hop it too much. You can't get on the brakes when your car's in the air, or in the grass for that matter. And there was just no saving that. But Diaz is in now. Campbell's going to retake the lead. No, he's not. He's going to come in as well. And he actually brought that gap down by almost a full second over the course of that lap. So he might have made a big mistake. He might have lost 4 seconds on Diaz, but he made up a ton of it already.
Yes, he did, as he works his way now down into the pit stall. There, a very narrow pit lane for these drivers to work their way down and through. Campbell waiting for the fuel to be put into the car. There is Adam Brockway, the driver that we are all keeping our eye on here as he pilots his way out onto the main straightaway. There is almost nothing separating Diaz and Campbell now, but it's going to be Brockway losing out to the pair of them.
Michael Diaz was in second behind Sean Campbell for the entirety of that first stint. He had a chance to save fuel if he really wanted to, but no. Sean Campbell in the box for 1.4 seconds less than Michael Diaz, despite the fact that he was leading the race. So that tells me that the fact that Diaz was able to stick with Campbell was just because Campbell was saving fuel. I think he's way faster than Diaz on true pace. And that's going to make it very difficult for Michael Diaz to hang on to this win. I thought it was a costly mistake for Sean Campbell. I thought that might be him out of contention for the win for the first time this season. Nope. Instantly, 4-second gap, now down to 0.7 of a second.
And here comes the race. What is going to happen? We have seen Sean Campbell so many times being the defender here over the course of this PRL GT4 sprint season. Now he is in the position of the attacker. Will he be able to put on that same kind of juice? And not to mention the fact we now have Brian Vorst directly up ahead of these drivers, some lap traffic to throw everything into the mix. This is going to get spicy.
I imagine Vorst will be nice. I imagine he'll get out of the way, but there's sections of this track where it's impossible to get out of the way. Michael Diaz is hoping and praying that they reach Brian Vorst in a nice section of the track. Maybe this straight, maybe the back straight. That would be optimal for Michael Diaz, but if they're going to catch him right here into turns 2, 3, and 4, this is the worst possible place for them to catch Vorst. But luckily, they're going to catch him just in time here for the back straight, and I have to imagine, yeah, Vorst is just going to pull off here, or is he? He's not yet. He probably should. He should probably get out of the way soon. Michael Diaz is probably yelling and screaming in his own cockpit, not over the radio. Brian, please get out of the way. We're going to catch you at the end of the lap. But he's going to wait. He's going to wait to let him by, and he is on the lead lap, so he has every right to, I guess.
Yes, he does, as they work their way through 6, 7, 8, and 9 right now. Vorst slowing down your leader a little bit. There, he gets out of the way on the exit of turn 9, but the damage has been done. About 0.4 of a second now between Campbell and Diaz, as Campbell tries to close down with about 11.5 minutes to go here as they cross over the timing and scoring line. It looks like the race is very much on. 0.5 of a second separating Diaz and Campbell.
And that BMW has been faster in a straight line, which is very worrying. If you're Michael Diaz, the guy's faster in a straight line and he's better under braking. How in the world do you stay ahead of that? I don't know. Michael Diaz is asking himself the same questions. He's going to have to get the defending chops of his life out here if he wants to hold Sean Campbell back. We've seen Owen Watts defend very well against Sean Campbell. It's never ended in the driver who isn't Sean Campbell winning the race, but Michael Diaz could be the first to do it. He's just got to put a lot of effort in here and put up the defense of his life.
Yes, Yes, he does, as they now work their way down the back straightaway here. Campbell looking to try to see if he can find a little bit of an advantage, but not sure if that's going to be able to get him anything. They now fly their way through 6, 7, 8, and down into 9 right now. There, Campbell has the gap down underneath 0.4 of a second as they get onto the loud pedal. As we continue to watch this battle, Brockway really not in the conversation at all, as he has dropped down to about 2.5 seconds behind these two. They work their way onto the main straightaway. Brian Hoskins, the next driver they're going to have to worry about. He sits about 4 seconds up the road of Diaz.
Sean Campbell, unfortunately for him, his worst corner is the last corner, the place where he needs a good run to be able to get by Michael Diaz. He cannot get a run, and that's reassuring for Michael Diaz. That is not reassuring for Sean Campbell, because he needs to find a way to get faster through that final corner, to get a better exit, because turn 1 is where he's at his best, and that's the easiest place to make a move. But Sean, it's almost a tragedy at the one place where he has to make a move he is the worst at. I'm sure he's eternally frustrated at that fact, but he is very, very close to Michael Diaz here. Brings the gap down to about 0.2 with the extreme straight line speed of that BMW. He's there. He's just got to maximize his exit through the most important corner on the track.
Yes, he does, and it's all going to be about trying to get that rubber on the road, not having too much bouncing of the tires as they run. It's going to be a tricky thing here for Campbell to do, but if anybody can do it, it is Sean Campbell. 0.4 of a second now as they streak onto the main straightaway once again with about 9 minutes and 10 seconds left to go in this race. Diaz recognizes that he doesn't need to do that much weaving here at this point. Behind them, Brockway has cleared Brian Vorse, so he is the next car in line if these two were to squabble a little bit. They dive their way down into the corner right now, trying to see what they can do. The gap holding at about 0.4 as they work their way through the chicane of 2 and 3. Back up here into turn 4, the left-hander that leads onto the back straightaway. This is a good run for Campbell. Diaz clobbered a little too much of that curve.
Making the move into turn 6 is not ideal, but if Sean Campbell is fast enough, if he can pull alongside Michael Diaz, that might just be where he has to do it, because he's not good through the final corner. But no, he's going to hang behind Diaz. He's going to stay in line. He's not going to go for a move that might potentially wreck the both of them. They're going to get a lapped car here. That is Brian Hoskins right ahead in the Mercedes. And again, it's another unfortunate place for Michael Diaz. If Hoskins can't get out of the way before the final corner, that is going to damage Michael Diaz's run through the final corner. And this is exactly what Sean Campbell needed. Slow down Diaz and get closer on your worst corner of the track. And that was almost perfect for Sean Campbell as the lap car gets out of the way. Held up Michael Diaz just a little bit, but it was not enough to close down that gap at all.
No, it was not, and Diaz will be able to hold out here. And with lap times at about a 1:12 or so, we are seeing these drivers put down absolutely blistering time after blistering time. Just for the record, by the way, Diaz, Campbell, and Brockway all within 100th of a second on that last lap. That is just how hard these drivers are pushing. Gotta say, though, that's a very good exit there off of turn 4 for Sean Campbell. But again, I don't think he's going to want to have that move going down into turn 6, although he does look a little bit closer. Here comes the fade. Is this the move we've been waiting for? Here comes Sean Campbell looking down to the inside, backs it off just a little bit, but tries to keep it aggressive, and Diaz is going to stay in front.
It's almost impossible to go too wide through there, so well done by Sean Campbell backing out just a little bit. Well done by Michael Diaz, leaving as much room as possible, but they're going to be side by side here through another section of the track where you can't really go too wide. Around the outside into the final corner, Diaz is going to be able to hang on, but he's got the outside, and he is just barely clear of Sean Campbell. But Campbell's going to have another run here. Diaz has got to block all the way down to the inside here, I think, because Campbell very quick in a straight line. Is he going to peek to the inside? Is he going to send it into turn 1? I thought he would, but no, he stays behind again. He's going to wait for another lap.
Yeah, he's trying to get it, trying to be able to do anything that he can to be able to get himself on by, but I think that was just a little bit too overeager of a move there from Sean Campbell. We saw the difficulty as they went through this sector of the track last time by. Is Campbell going to have another look here? It looks like he's a little bit too far back as they get their way through the sweeper of turn 5. I don't think he's going to try to have another run here. If I were Campbell, I'd try to line things up coming out of those final corners.
Problem, though, is that last lap was the best run he's had through the final corner, and that's because he was alongside Michael Diaz. And you can see how much just that one corner of racing, about 2 corners of racing, I should say, slowed them down. Because look at Adam Brockway. He was about 3 seconds back after the pit stop cycle. It's now 1.5 seconds. So if these two do come to blows, if Sean Campbell makes a move on the last lap that's a little bit too aggressive, Adam Brockway is right there to pick up the pieces. But this is actually the closest Sean Campbell's been down this straight. Is he going to be close enough to dive it into turn 1? Again, no. He's faster in a straight line, but he needs to be within like 3/10 or even 2/10 down that front straight to get close enough to make the move into turn 1.
Yeah, it just looks like he's not able to get the run there that he wants to, and so he may have to get a little bit inventive as they try to find a couple of ways by maybe that turn 6 overtaking opportunities. Not the last time that we've seen him try that, as it looks like he gets again a much better run there out of turn 4. The gap holding at about 2.22 of a second right now, working their way down the backstretch, down to a 1/10.5. Here comes Campbell trying to fill up the road. There was Michael Diaz. He's going to force Campbell to go the long way around. Campbell says, okay, I'm going to try to do it. Hops over the curb. That may have been a little bit aggressive there, but it looks like Diaz is going to force him wide and hold on to P1.
All over the road there. No slowdowns to be given for any of those off tracks there. That was incredible by Michael Diaz to be able to hold on to that. And that was a little bit of a cut by Sean Campbell there, rather. But either way, this is the closest he's been onto the front straight. It might not have worked out at turn 6, but here he comes into turn 1.
And you can tell that immediately by Diaz ducking down to the inside line, trying to protect that. Here comes Campbell as he's going to try to use that overspeed, but later onto the binders there as Diaz forces him a little bit wide, a little bit argy-bargy there. That's going to force Campbell offline. Here comes Brockway getting involved in it. Campbell still down to the inside. They clobber the curbs. The Mercedes has a nose ahead as they work their way through the chicane and now tries to feed Campbell out into the barriers there, side by side down the back straightaway.
Adam Brockway is twiddling his fingers right now like there's a delicious meal in front of him. This is exactly what he wants to see, but this right here on this straight is not what he wants to see. Campbell's pulling away just a little bit. Diaz needs to stick to the inside here, and he is able to. Under braking, Diaz still hanging tough. They're still side by side through the toughest section of the track. Campbell around the outside, and he's off the road. Brockway has to slow down. Diaz hangs on, but they were side by side for literally a whole lap there.
My goodness gracious, and now here comes a little bit of a look from Adam Brockway trying to go down to the inside there of turn 11. That's not going to pay out. I think there's probably about 3 laps left in this race with only 3 minutes left on the clock, and the gap between Diaz and Campbell holds at about 0.6 of a second.
Sean Campbell's not going to be especially happy about what went on in turn 1 because Diaz did outbrake himself just a little bit, made contact with Sean Campbell, forced them both essentially off the road. So Campbell's probably going to take that into consideration. If he's going to go around the outside, is Michael Diaz going to give me much room if I go around the outside in turn 1? I don't necessarily know. So I might try and sell him a dummy, figure out if I can send it to the inside in turn 1. That might be the way, or that probably will be the way that Sean Campbell's going to have to get by. He's going to get another shot at him. He's closed down the 7/10 gap, but he's only going to have 2 more laps at the line, and it has proven exceptionally difficult to get by Michael Diaz.
Exceptionally difficult as the number 17 has made that Mercedes is absolutely wide, as you can imagine. They work their way there out of turn 9 right now. The gap hovering at about 0.3 of a second as Campbell tries to close in behind. Brockway has fallen back a little bit. He's about 0.7 of a second behind Campbell right now. Doesn't look like Campbell has the run that he would have necessarily wanted there coming onto the main straightaway, as indeed we cross over with 2 laps to go. Diaz feeling the pressure though, trying to snake a little bit to break that draft. They're going to go down into the first corner here. I don't think Campbell's going to be close enough to be able to get the move, and indeed he's not. He's going to have one more chance to be able to make that move into the first corner.
We've seen every time he gets this close through turn 1, it feels like he's just lining up the move for the back straight, and I think he is going to do that again. For all the struggles he's had through the final corner, he's been so good through this, essentially the final corner onto the back straight, turn 5, and he is so close. He's going to go for a move here into turn 6, but it's not been successful every time he's tried. He's going to need to be a little bit more clear of Michael Diaz this time around. They're still going to be side by side, maybe 3rd time's a charm.
It looks like Diaz had to be a little bit later on the binders there to be able to hold him off. Campbell clobbering over the curbs. If Diaz can keep that car to the inside, he'll have the preferred line. Maybe a little bit of contact there between the two. Again, Diaz is going to feed Campbell out wide. Keeps him going well. They now dive their way down into the corners here for turns 11 and 12. It'll feed back here to Diaz, and it looks like Diaz is able to keep him away. Looking for the crossover there is Campbell, but here comes Brockway. White flag in the air from Barney the Flagman, and it's side by side for P2 as Diaz starts to get his way ahead, and here comes Brockway on a bit of a charge. They fly down the main straightaway, down into turn 1. Who's going to be able to have the battle of the late breakers here? Diaz fades a little bit to cover off Campbell, but they both go wide, and that's going to be the P1 up to Brockway.
That is incredible. The seas part for Adam Brockway. Michael Diaz rejoins the track, kind of Ross Chastain style there in front of the leader. Does Brockway have damage from that little incident? What is going on here? He's going to be side by side with Sean Campbell now. I thought Brockway had the win in the bag there, but suddenly Sean Campbell is fighting back, and Brockway's got a lot of work to do. He suddenly has to fight for this win. We haven't seen him fighting with Sean Campbell for this entire race. Side by side through turn 6. Brockway doesn't want to lose this, but Campbell takes the lead back.
Oh my goodness, Sean Campbell able to take that away there at the last minutes from Adam Brockway. Brockway really has only one more reasonable opportunity, but even then it's going to be very, very tricky for him to be able to get anything done. They dive down now into turn 11 and turn 12, trying to see if there's anything. Late move there from Diaz. That's going to spin Brockway around, and it's going to be Sean Campbell taking victory at the line from Michael Diaz. Diaz looks like he's going to do the gentlemanly thing there and allow for Brockway to be able to get past back by him. Oh my goodness gracious, and that's going to change things around.
How did Sean Campbell win that race? I have no idea what happened in the seconds between when Diaz and Brockway both went off. I understand how that happened. It was a late block by Diaz. Let's watch it here. Through the final corner, I'll talk you through this whole thing here. Brockway, he smells victory here, but unfortunately, he can't clear Campbell. He can't get to the inside. Campbell knows it's the last lap. He sends it to the inside. Diaz blocks way too late. He knows he's not going to be able to get the car slowed down. Luckily for him, Campbell's not able to get the car slowed down either. Brockway goes through, and how on earth did Sean Campbell catch back up to him? Diaz comes back on track, hits Brockway, and then through this final corner onto the back straight, Brockway gets loose. Sean Campbell somehow finds the perfect line. The C's open for him, and Sean Campbell's undefeated still. I'm dumbfounded.
Absolutely incredible stuff there from Sean Campbell, being able to get that fight back. We keep our eyes here, and there is really where it was done and dusted. Campbell just chucking that car in there to be able to go and down into that. My goodness gracious, you could not have asked for a more sensational end to a GT4 sprint race than that, Joey.
And what a range of emotions that's going to be for Adam Brockway. He saw exactly what he needed to see. He saw the two leaders go flying off the track, and then suddenly it all falls apart. I'm sure he's going to be very unhappy with Michael Diaz, who made contact with him twice over the course of that lap. Without that contact coming into turn 4, or turn 5 rather, who knows if Brockway would have been able to get the better exit he needed, and then Campbell wouldn't have been able to get by. And then, to make matters worse, Diaz turns him through the final corner. He let him by coming to the line, but there's going to be some hard feelings between Adam and Michael.
To agree with you there, but as we run through our final finishing order here, Campbell, Brockway, and Diaz, your top 3: Greg Doucette in P4, followed by Jerome Berthum in P5. Darren Rutherford was in 6th, followed by Rob Campbell and Nicholas Carangis, Jeffrey Seabach, and Drew Price in the top 10. Down in 11th, it was Brian Vorse, followed by Brian Hoskins. These are drivers who were a couple of laps down. Owen Watts, Matias Arunga, Francis Castillo Romero, and then we get into the DNFs here on the day. Carlos Lopez, Jacob Kruger, Blake Ziti, and Keith Bonilla. Rounding out the drivers that had the finishing run here today. And it looks like we are able to be joined by our 5th place driver, Jerome Berthum, as he is waiting for us here in the interview booth. And Jerome, I don't know how much you saw at the front of that race, but my goodness gracious, that looked like the most intense track I think I've ever seen.
It was really crazy, and at the start of the race I managed to avoid the little chaos that was in front. I think I got a little bit of damage through that chaos because when I pit I had 30 seconds of optional repair. But yeah, it was just a crazy race, and the battle at the end with Greg and also defending against Darren at the beginning of the race, it was really crazy. One of the most intense races of my life.
Well, talk me through your mentality when you come into a race like this that is a little bit of an unknown in the form of a new circuit and that is just such a high commitment track. Does that change the way you approach the race?
My plan was to only be safe tonight because it was a new track. I don't know very much that track, and this track is really bad for the BMW. Yeah, I was struggling in the practice, and at the end of the practice, a big thanks to Sean Campbell, who gave me some tips for setup and with the BMW, and wow, that was a kidding setup, and I managed to get P8 in the qualifying, and the race that was just perfect. So that was a big help for me.
Well, next week we head to Road America. Is that going to favor you and the BMW a little bit more? We know how much that top line speed certainly helps out the BM.
Top line speed will be helping out my BMW. You know, the BMW is really good at the momentum track, and I don't know if it's going to be good because there's a lot of hard braking point on that circuit, but who knows? I really love Road America, so I can't wait to be racing there next week.
Well, I can't wait to be calling it there. It's one of my favorite circuits on the sim. But as for tonight, Jerome, anybody you'd like to thank?
Yes, sir. Thanks to you guys for broadcasting. Big thanks for my teammate Michael, who gave me some tips to learn the track. Big thanks also to Sean Campbell for the setup tips. It was really helpful tonight. Thanks to our sponsor, Advanced Sim Racing, Ninja Trader, Butt Kicker, and Race Lab. And thanks to all the watchers.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And congratulations on a fifth there again. That was Jerome Berthiaume, your fifth place finisher. And Joey, that unfortunately is going to round out our interview section here today. It looks like as none of the podium wants to talk to us after that very, very crazy end of the race.
Well, unfortunately, Australian commentator Joey Tebbin here, the real American Joey Tebbin, has fallen ill after that finish. It was too crazy. He has died from excitement, so I'll be here with you for the rest of the broadcast, which luckily is ending, so I don't have to do this impression anymore.
There we take another look on your screen of that insane last couple of laps. By far the most electric end to a race we have seen over the course of this season. And folks, if you like what you saw here tonight, tune in with us next week as we head to Sebring Club and Road America here for the GT4 series. That's right, we head to the National Park of Speed. It's going to be a very, very fantastic race to be able to see how these GT4 machineries are able to take to that track. But in the meantime, we want to thank you so much for joining us here tonight. And on behalf of the team up here in the booth, Joey Tebbin, as well as our director and producer, Hugo Louise, and myself, DJ Clark, thank you. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.